Flex Sunday.
All right, I would like to call this Monday, February 5th, 2018 work session meeting of the Somerset School Board to order at 6:01 p.m. Tasia, can you please do roll call?
Bruce Largen.
Here.
Amy Thurman. Here. Marie Colvin. Nancy Dressel.
Here.
Courtney Kukowski. Catherine Cranston. Patty Shocker. Here.
Thank you. Our district mission is together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. Item 3 on our agenda is public comment, and we have received one red card for public comment this evening. If anyone else is interested, they're over there on the table. Opinions and ideas contributed by students, parents, staff, and other citizens are valuable to the school board. The board will receive such input without comment or take no action relative to any of the items brought forward. They may direct the district administrator to consider such an item at an appropriate place on the agenda or subsequent meeting. The board has set aside 20 minutes for this purpose. Anyone wishing to address the board is asked to fill out a card prior to the start of the meeting, and please limit comments to 2 minutes. We have been actually using a timer to be consistent and fair to limit it to 2 minutes, so I will raise my hand when the time is up. And just a reminder that it's very important that we maintain confidentiality and privacy for students and employees. So please refrain from sharing any names or any other identifying characteristics. If I'm concerned that confidentiality is being violated, I will also intervene and try to protect our students and employees. So, Julie, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Julie Moulton. On December 11th, 2017, I had a 5th grade student tell me she no longer wanted to live. I have been a paraprofessional in the Somerset School District for 15 years, working with children who have behavior or learning disorders. I would say it's my calling. I love working with children. Past year and a half, I have seen the behaviors and lack of respect from students escalate. I had many conversations with administration regarding these issues and how serious it had become. I was told things would change. They did not. I myself had to handle a lot of disrespect and verbal abuse. I had a 5th grade student tell me to F off. He was back in school the next day. I could give you many examples of when children did and said whatever they wanted. The sad part in all of this is I never felt I could go to our administration in the middle school to get the help and support I needed. And believe me, I tried. It seems that something awful has to happen for people to see how bad things really are. When I found out that the 5th grade student who shared with me that she no longer wanted to live walked home that day with no lines of communication with her mother, I was appalled, and then I watched her put her coat on and leave. I knew in my heart that I could no longer work in a school where the administration could do something so horrific. I resigned the next day. I wanted to make the administration aware that this student did not have a landline or cell phone. When she went home that day, the response I got from administration was, "Email me that, Julie." This speaks volumes to the lack of communication amongst the staff and administration in the Somerset Middle School. My hope is that the Somerset Middle School will work very hard to make sure the safety of our children is their #1 priority. Also, that the administration can become more effective when it comes to communicating with their staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we greatly appreciate and value all perspectives and using them to help us improve. Not having received any other red cards, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda. The first item is topics for action, item 4A, which is to suspend Robert's Rules of Order. Is anyone willing to make that motion?
Yeah.
Thank you, Bruce. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Katie. All those in favor of suspending Robert's Rules of Order, please say aye. Aye. All those against? And the motion passes unanimously 4-0. So the first thing, or next topic on our agenda is item 5, ACT test schedule. Shannon.
Okay, literally just want to give you just a 2-minute kind of update. I forget you're sitting over here. So we have ACT testing coming up in the high school, February 27 and 28, our ACT and work keys assessment. As you know, at the high school, it's our high stake assessment for the entire building. So really want to make sure that we maintain a really good testing environment those 2 days. So just want to give you an update on kind of what's happening in the building those 2 days. So juniors were busy 2 straight days of doing ACT and work keys testing, so they're kind of in their own little world here. On the 27th, we have our freshmen, sophomores, and seniors going on a wide variety of college visits. We have, I think at this point, 7 places set up for kids to be able to choose to go. Private school, public school, tech school, beauty school, a wide variety of things for kids to be able to kind of try out and explore a little bit. We're also encouraging parents that if there's a specific college or university that's not on our list of places that we're going, that might be a really good day for you to be able to take your child and go do maybe a different visit, since there's no classes going on that day, and kind of utilizing that time if possible. On the 28th, as I said, our juniors are doing work keys, and our freshmen, sophomore, seniors are going to the Science Museum to participate in the race exhibit. We also have, again, as we've been sending out information to parents, encouraging them that day as well, potentially to go on a college visit if that's something they were interested in doing. I do want to make one correction, I'm sorry. On the 27th, our seniors are going to Second Harvest. Also as another option, if we have seniors that have already determined, hey, I know I'm going here, somewhere else for them to go. Okay, going to do a breakfast on the morning of the 27th, again for our juniors. That's been kind of a tradition that's been started in the high school a couple of years ago. Just kind of get some good energy moving in the building and kind of get the kids kicked off in the right direction for 2 really busy, pretty strenuous days of testing. So just want to make the board aware that we've got kind of a lot going on those 2 days, and classes as usual won't be happening, but we've got some other things, in place to hopefully kind of keep everyone engaged and interested in what's happening those 2 days. So questions on that?
Sounds like you have it all under control.
Well, the counseling staff does, for sure. So,
Is that
yeah.
when you do accommodations too, or is that different dates?
So the accommodations window for those 2 tests actually extends 2 weeks beyond those 2 testing dates. So, yep, lots of time to be able to get those in too. Okay, I think I'm next, right? After
Yep.
this?
Next up is 18-19 master schedule.
Okay.
In the meantime, you all got this in the mail?
Very amazing.
I just, so cool, so pretty dang.
Yeah, if you. Great, thank you. All right, I've been so excited to talk to you about this. I think Mark told me I only get 5 minutes for this, so I'm gonna talk really fast.
This is the 50,000-foot bar, you're
I
gonna
try,
get more than
yes.
you ever wanna know down the road.
Yes, yes. So this won't be the one and only shot of me delivering information to you on our new schedule for next year. I know we have some people missing today too, so we'll have to kind of redo this again probably at some point. But wanted just to give you kind of a, as Mark said, a 50,000-foot view of kind of where have we been since September till now, and kind of our next steps in terms of changing the master schedule at the high school next year. Changing any type of master schedule is a huge deal, a huge overtaking. There's all sorts of moving parts to what that looks like. And really, these conversations started last spring with our building leadership team. I know Mark came down to the high school multiple times last spring just to kind of start having some conversations about, potentially would we want to look at making some changes, and really the why behind it. And this why is really where we have grounded our conversations in the building really since September, is really knowing that we're not going to make a schedule change just to make one. There really has to be some solid rationale as to why do we want to do this. So having conversations in our building about why do we want to move away from a 6-period day. I feel I am extremely lucky that I have a very progressive, innovative staff that are very willing to have conversations about how can we make our school look different, how can we deliver education different than it was even when we were in school or when most of you were in school, because really for the most part education still looks the same. So My staff has seen these visuals a lot because we know that, from 1900s to most classrooms today, very little has changed. And we are on a mission to make sure that the education at Somerset High School is going to look different and really fit a 21st century educational delivery. So basically this is, in a nutshell, the why behind we started having conversations about making a schedule change. Over and over, staff had a lot of conversations about a 6-period day is very limiting. We have a lot of students leaving our building as seniors that were not able to take the classes they wanted to take. I have to take 2 years of foreign language to go to the U of M, and then I can't take art, or I have to take this instead of choir, or this instead of band, and really wanted to open up opportunities for our kids. Finding that we really don't have any solid, constant time during our day for kids and staff to be able to connect. Doing it before school is almost impossible. After school is beyond impossible. So really wanting to find time in the day that is scheduled specifically for students and staff to be able to connect. Looking at being able to, and these two kind of blend here a little bit, but for remediation, we talk a lot about retakes. We talk a lot about if you have kids in class that you go through a lesson and you have 3 kids that just didn't quite get it. There is not time right now for us to be able to get those kids to get it without moving on, right? And as I mentioned, really wanting to look at how we do school differently to reflect a 21st century education. So if you click on that document, and since I have limited time, I'm not going to go all the way into that document today, but I encourage you to do so. That document really kind of outlines from the staff perspective, the student perspective, and the parent perspective in terms of what are people looking for in an education at Somerset High School. And we have used this document literally in 99% of the meetings that we've had about looking at a new schedule, and keep going back to our why. And if the conversations we were having didn't fit into our why, then we shelved it and moved on to something else. So looking at also when we're having conversations about making changes, we know that we want to align any changes in the district with our strategic plan. We felt looking at the educational delivery piece of it, and specifically our action step of utilizing flexible schedules to optimize resources and empower all students in learning and being engaged, that looking at potentially making a master schedule change aligned very nicely with that piece of our strategic plan. So, looking at the process. So, in September that month was really consisted of me doing some independent research and really kind of taking a look at our non-negotiables that we have at the high school, knowing that as of right now, we're not planning on adding any staff. Certainly that we know that could change, but when we're looking at the changes, we're not adding staff. We have shared staff still with the middle school, so we needed to take that into account as well, and not messing at this point with our start and end time. So looking at those 3 things, I started essentially looking at what are all the options that we possibly could look at in a master schedule. And you can cut up a master schedule probably about 1,000 different ways, right? 8-period days, 7-period blocks, skinnies, all those kinds of things. And I started really kind of putting together information for our staff and doing a lot of the legwork for them. And once we kind of started to narrow down through September and October, and I encourage you to take a look at this document as well, it's pretty extensive and lays out month by month really what we were doing in the building. And the best part, I think, once we kind of got to eventually that we were looking at, what a flex mod is going to make the most sense for us, is that idea for a schedule didn't come from me, that came from our staff. And we started looking at, okay, we've got a 3x5 schedule, Osceola just moved to a 3x5, we've got a lot of districts around us that have just made some master schedule changes, so we started making connections with them. As you can see in that document, we did multiple Google Hangouts, a couple school visits, made a trek out at 4:45 in the morning. I think we got to the bus garage to Wausau West High School, because we really want to make sure at the end of the day that we exhausted all of the research to make sure that whatever decision we landed on, it was going to be the best decision for Somerset High School. And we were okay at the end of this saying, if we get to the end of our journey, the end of our research, and we still haven't found something, frankly by about mid-January, then, we would go through another year of the 6-period day and continue to do research, so we didn't make a change just to make a change. As you can see in the document as well, we received input from students, lots of input from staff, we sent out a parent survey, and all of those things kind of funneled into our final decision. And that final decision, we landed on doing a flex mod schedule next year. And to be honest with you, at the beginning of this journey, I had no idea what a flex mod was. I couldn't articulate any pieces of it. I kind of assumed in my head that somewhere along the line we'd probably end up with, you know, a traditional-ish type schedule. I never would have imagined that as a staff we would be prepared to move toward a flex mod schedule. So just going to give you the really short Cliff Notes version of what a flex mod is. Okay, so you really have to kind of put off to the side everything you know about how a school typically works in terms of periods, right? So right now we have a 6-period day. Periods are about 57 minutes. And the way that our kids and staff move through the day is the bell rings. We're in one spot for 57 minutes. That next bell rings. We all move and file, just like a nice old factory line, right? And at one point when education, was 100 years ago, that made a lot of sense for society and the economy at that time. We don't believe this makes sense for our students and staff anymore. So we are ditching the idea of periods and we're moving to what's called mods. So our master schedule is chunked up throughout the day of 20-minute mods. So mod 1 will be from 8:30 to 8:50, mod 2 from 8:50 to 9:10, and so on. We've already had some really good discussions in our building regarding wanting to maintain a homeroom. So our day is going to start off with from 8 to 8:30 every single day, a homeroom. Actually, we had feedback from students as well that like being able to kind of have a solid connection of a staff member every single day, so we're going to do that as well. But the way it works with classes is teachers custom build their classes depending on how much time they think they need in a given week, okay? And the classes are phased into a couple different ways. A large group phase, a small group, and then a lab. And I'll show you a little bit here in a second. Sorry, I'm going to go over my 5 minutes.
You got 6.
I'm moving quick, okay? And classes are chunked up in a given week in a variety of ways based off of what teachers feel they need in a given week. So let's use Kelly Emerson as a really good example. In her foods class, she would love the opportunity to be able to do, let's say, an hour-long or even an hour-and-a-half-long lab once a week to be able to really dig in there when she's doing her cooking. Because 57 minutes just doesn't cut it. Some days, 57 minutes for Kelly Emerson is all she needs because she's doing some lecture, maybe some small group work. But there's other times during the week where she would like more time. Chemistry, another great example. You could go down the line as to how many different ways you can chop up a class depending on what the needs are that teacher has determined. This is what I need in order for my kids to get what they need. And this is all driven by staff. This is not me dictating, this is how many mods you're going to have, this is how many mods you're going to have. Right now we're having really good discussions in our PLCs regarding what do you think you need. And some teachers are like, yes, I know I need this and this and this. And others are like, help me, I have no idea. So right now we're putting together a lot of resources for teachers saying, yep, we've worked with schools and this is how they've chopped up a chemistry class, or this is how they've done Algebra 1. Ours maybe doesn't have to look like that, but let's at least start there, right? So a couple important things just to realize about the schedule. Every Monday in a flex mod schedule is the same for every kid, every staff. Every Tuesday is the same, every Wednesday is the same. But throughout the week, those days are going to look different. All right, and we'll talk about that when I do my visual in a second. Students can take up to 9+ classes per year. We worked with some schools where they had students taking up to 11 classes. Because as I'm going to show you here, there's so much flexibility that students are able to double up. And right now we don't have that option. The minimum amount of classes that students will have to take is 6, which is no different than right now. But the upside is how many more classes kids can take within this flex schedule here. Okay? Sorry, this is a lot. I'll go through it really quick here. But one of the biggest pieces that we were excited about is that there are chunks of time during the day where teachers have what they call open mods and students have open mods and students and teachers can connect during the school day. And that was a huge, huge motivation for us to look at something like this, right? In a given day, there will be resource centers throughout the building where there will always be a content area teacher available for a student. So there will be a math resource center designated in our building where every day, every hour, there will be a math teacher in that resource center. It may not be your math teacher, but there will be a content area teacher for reading, or for English, science, social studies, and so on, right? That way there's always somebody open and available to you if you are stuck, okay? Classes overlap. So if we have a student, for example, that wants to take an AP Psych class and a choir, Right now, if I have students coming to me wanting to take a double class like that, we have to say no because we have no structures in place for students really to be able to do that well. In these classes, it really is up to the student to be able to connect with those teachers and say, you know what, I'm going to be in AP Psych maybe 3 days a week and choir 2 days a week, and the next week I might be able to flip-flop. But it allows students that flexibility to be able to participate in more than one class, and now we don't have to tell kids no. Okay? So, just get a really quick visual, okay? So on the top, right now, is a pretty traditional schedule in our 6-period day. Okay, first period English, second period Phy Ed, and so on, all right? This bottom shows you what this schedule might look like in a flex mod. So for example, we'll take foods here for example. So on a Monday, foods class is 4 mods long, right? 4 mods long, a nice chunk of time for Miss Emerson to be able to do a lab. On Tuesday, this student doesn't have foods. No foods class for that student, right? On Wednesday, another big chunk of time. This might be another lab. On Thursday, 3 mods, a little bit smaller. And on Friday, no foods class. So it's the same amount of time, it's just chunked differently in a day, right? The other thing I want to show you, in a 20 mod schedule, which is what we are going to have, you see English, English, Phy Ed, foods, history, lunch, chemistry, algebra 1, and now the student is actually able to take ceramics as well. So more opportunity just right off the bat, and this is a pretty traditional schedule, okay? Anywhere that you see flex, this is what my kids right now are really excited about as I'm pitching it to different groups of students. This flex time for our kids is an open mod, which means there'll be spaces designated in the building for kids to be able to go, where this student on a Monday has a 20-minute open mod here and a 20-minute open mod there, where they have that time to do whatever it is they choose to do. Okay, we really want kids to kind of have greater ownership over their learning, right? This student starts the day with 2 open mods. What a great time to maybe do some homework if you have a late basketball game the night before, right? Looking at these open mod times, those are times you can connect with teachers, you can work on collaborative projects. That's open time in the day where kids are able to make choices in terms of what do they want to do with their learning. If we find over the course of time that students are struggling with how to use that time, then we decide for them. These mods are no longer open mods, they're scheduled to be in a resource center. Make sense?
Yep.
One other big piece of this that we've talked about as a staff is really kind of focusing and developing almost like a freshman academy. So freshmen coming in can really learn how to function within a flex mod. We've experienced that a little bit this year as we've been doing some kind of flex seating and those kinds of things in the building. And when kids are so used to being told what to do in school, all of a sudden having this independence and freedom for some of them is hard. So we need to teach them how to kind of work through being able to have some of this independence. So again, just a quick visual. I'm going fast here. I could talk about this probably forever. But so right now what's happening in the building, in our PLCs, teachers are having conversations about how they phase their classes. Okay? Tomorrow actually, I will be in this building with a whole big group of our building leaders, and we're going to start analyzing building spaces within our high school. What are some spaces we could use for large group? What are some spaces we can use for small group? Where are we going to put our resource centers, those kinds of things. We're going to do kind of a mass review of our credits and look at our class menus. Do we have enough electives? Do we have enough of kind of what we need to get going? And part of this is for next year. It's going to be messy for sure. It's going to be bumpy. We may find out a year from now we need to make some more tweaks and changes, but this is something that we really believe in and we feel good about in terms of all the things that we talk about that are important for our kids in Somerset. We feel this is the best way to be able to do that. So we're excited, and we've got some parent meetings coming up. Students this week and next week are going to be registering for classes. We've got Infinite Campus coming on campus February 14th, because that was, I know, a bit of a panic from our IT folks of like, whoa, what does this look like? Because it is a pretty massive change. But Infinite Campus is already working with a couple other schools that do flex mod on the other side of the state. So the wheels are kind of in motion, and it's just going to be, like I said, a lot of dialogue and talking. But the best part is we've just got a ton of energy and excitement about it, and I think it's going to be good. So that was a lot, I know, a lot in just a little tiny bit, but
In 6 minutes.
I know, 6 minutes.
Thank you for that 6 minutes.
I know. But, so, my plan is to just continue to bring you guys information and just kind of walk you along where we are, so you guys know and can kind of be able to share in the community. People ask you, like, whoa, what in the world are we doing? You know, one of my teachers brought up a good point too, that, you know, we talk a lot about branding, right? We talk a lot about like who we are and what makes up Somerset. And we think something like this is really gonna set us apart from any other school within our area, certainly within our conference, and we believe it's best for kids, so we're excited.
I love the flex time in there, and if, you're right, I mean, if that won't work for all kids, so you
Yeah.
have to tell them, but, and then I did read the parent, responses.
Yes.
And I just thought it was interesting that the parents versus the student responses were
Mm-hmm.
different.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got a juggling act there.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of those parent responses, especially the second question about what are some of the characteristics that you
Yeah.
want, you know, your child to lead with, the parents didn't know it, but they're pointing toward a flex mod, right? Like, we want our kids to be critical thinkers and independent and problem solvers. You can't do those things within a traditional school schedule. You just, that's my own personal opinion, I just don't think you can. So if we want kids to be able to do those things, we have to give them opportunities to do those things. And right now, within our building, it's very adult driven. That's just how school kind of is. So we're hoping to flip that upside down and,
And at the School Board Association, there's a couple themes that, at the conference that kind of went through, and one was the race to the past, which is people are really afraid about, everyone wants to go back to when the good old days of the 1990s, when life was good,
Yeah.
but that's not the way it is anymore. And then the other thing was focusing 20th century learning in the 21st century. Again, thinking about the past. Everybody's afraid of it. Everybody's afraid of kids today. Everyone wants to go back to the safe zone. And this here is really it's a bold move. I like it a lot. I know there's gonna be a lot of heartburn in that, but I think, you know, you're right. If you're gonna be progressive and want education to be 21st century, this is what it has to be. And you have to be able to have a board that backs it up and that. So I am super, super excited about it. And you know, opportunities, when we went to the 6th period thing, that was the biggest complaint, is we took opportunities away from kids. Now we're giving opportunities back, and I think this is fantastic.
yeah, and I will say too, then I'll stop, I promise, but you know, as a staff, I mean, when you have conversations like this, you have some really crucial, critical conversations, right? About your beliefs and this is not comfortable, this is not how most of us were. And I've had, you know, some very vocal teachers in the building, when we started this, were like, are you kidding? Like, absolutely, why would we do this? Absolutely not, I can't even understand this. And these same people are in my office saying, when the seniors graduate, let's try some of this. When the seniors are out of the building, how quickly can we get moving? Because it just, once you kind of understand, you know, again, the why behind it, people are excited, so.
It gives them flexibility in their classes too.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited that it appears that there'll be a great opportunity to teach social emotional skills. That was one of the big themes at the Wisconsin Association Conference also. And Diggett's latest research program shows how the basis to success is social emotional skills, and that self-awareness and self-management, and a traditional schedule doesn't allow students to learn that about themselves or practice it. So I think that this will create that opportunity, which is wonderful.
Yeah, we're excited.
You got your hand up?
Oh, sorry, Mark.
I hate to be the grim reaper on this
Oh,
whole
no.
thing, but Shannon and I talked about a week or two ago, and
Yeah.
she has 2 lists that of things that we really need to bring to the board to show how this is going to work. And this is when we're really gonna dive into the weeds on this thing, because, you know, you're gonna have to see how every age group and style of learner makes it through 4 years, what kind of staff development we need, you know, professional development for this. I mean, we've got a lot of things
Yep.
that I wouldn't expect you to make a decision on until I'm comfortable with it first, and then you're comfortable. Modular scheduling isn't rocket science, it's not a new development. This was very big in the 70s, and it really kind of met its demise when budget cuts came and you started putting ninth graders into these high schools that were designed 10, 12, because sophomores, juniors, seniors can handle this. So there's, again, from experience, you know, as Shannon said, ninth grade academies, some different look with that ninth grade schedule. You just have to take that into consideration because, you know, some kids are ready for freedom, some aren't, so it's gonna have to be a gradual piece there, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I think with our size school, we can really make it an effective schedule, so.
One other thing, the strategic plan, having the students involved in the strategic plan, telling the adults, here's what the shortcomings and disappointments were in my education,
Yeah.
and listening to them is really important. It's real easy for a group of adults to tell them this is what you're gonna do when it's not their experience in that. So validating the kids' experience, I think, is a huge piece to this.
You're right, though, I have lots of questions, and so
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear more, because teacher contracts and what full-time employment looks like,
Yeah.
and, you know, how many mods equal a credit. You know, I'm very excited that there's a chance that kids could potentially earn 44 credits in their high school career if they wanted to. And I'd also be curious about interventions for students who are more than just assigning them. You know, there are interventions for executive functioning skills and things like that to use that time for other students. Awesome.
One more question. The FIED thing, I seen it was only 3 days. Is it just based on time, that they get the allotted time that's required
Yes,
versus
So-
having it every day?
right, yep.
So then are they gonna, since it'll probably be more, are they gonna have to take showers? I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Wherever going back to work.
I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, the emotional piece to that is gonna be huge, because some kids sweat differently than others.
Yeah.
With that, so,
Yeah.
you know, that is a potential for an issue in the classroom.
Yeah.
In that, because
Yeah.
in this particular one, I believe it was in the morning, if I had class.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Just
Will there
something
be
to
an
think
option for kids to have FIAD every day too? I mean, neuroscience
Well,
would say that's what we
one-
should be doing.
I know, so when we went to Wausau,
about.
they have, they require their kids to take a FIAD class every semester. And, you know, so we kind of, I know Trish came with too, we were kind of excited about looking at some different ways to do, and FIAD frankly was a big topic because they combined FIAD and health together. Anyway, so I think this will give us an opportunity to be a little bit more creative too about how we go over some of those things. Yeah, for sure. And just to speak a little bit to a few things, I'm not gonna answer them all right now, but I mean, those are all things too that are kind of on the top of our list of like, and you know, we've got kind of an outline from the other schools we've talked to, because you know, like Wausau's been doing this for, 25 years, and so just to kind of get an idea of, okay, that works there, but here, how many mods do we have to ensure that teachers get for their prep, and how many, it just looks different of how we kind of navigate through it, but, so, more to come.
Already excited for 5 years from now, when our middle school students can be walking over to the high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Any other questions?
We'll be looking at this a lot.
A lot.
More.
Excellent.
So we do.
So next up, we have Mark with the 2018-19 school calendar.
Okay, well, you have, our recommendation on the calendar here, and there's, obviously, there's a few changes, but basically it's a rollover from last year with a few changes. If we just, a couple things I'm just gonna make note of. We start on that Thursday and Friday in August there, and those 2 days are counted a little different for funding because they're summer school days, and that, but they do count in the teacher contract days. And those are the days that the elementary is doing their assessment pieces, but the upper grades will be in session. I put this out to, I put it out to you folks, and I put it out to our employee council piece, and I got feedback on a couple of areas here that's pretty much expected to. One of the areas is our, let's see, what day is that? It's in October, the Ed Camp piece. We really don't control that date. We control it as superintendents, basically, and we're looking for the best date we can find. I think the last couple of years, we've been in, what, Trish, you've been in February? for the
We
last
did
2
October
years?
the first year. This year, the superintendent's picked February.
Yeah, and every year it's some other issue, and we're trying to be as collaborative as we can, and, work with the area. Not all schools can attend it, or choose not to, but the vast majority do. And next year, the date was set in October for that. The other piece, I would say that, whenever we get around that January 21st time, that semester break there, basically, when everyone was on semesters, it was just a good work day. That was pretty much, free of meetings. And this is, from my position, it's great for the high school who will be on semesters, but for the elementary and middle school who are on trimesters, it just makes more sense to try and create that free time at a semester break or close to it. That's what we tried to do this year, was move that, those 2 days that were, the first one is right at the trimester break, the other one is the Friday following the trimester break. Now, the duty-free time, the district does have the whole district does have that 21st, as professional development. So the option of, is there district time involved there? Well, for high school, there wouldn't be, because that would be their duty-free time. For the elementary and middle school, they would have actually their time with a little bit more spread out on those 3 days, which maybe some district time, say, and at least half of it on those days would be building time for work time. And we're finding that, when some of the things we've implemented, people need more professional development on. I mean, it's getting more and more. So it's try to keep as much away from those days, but when we need days if we bring someone in or we have training, what have you, we've got that we kind of negotiate a little bit, that say, hey, this day we need this kind of time, or you may have the whole thing for work in your buildings. The other was the placement of spring break, and this is, talking with you heard Shannon today talk about the makeup time for the ACTs and what have you. It's really not, I don't know if we should say fair, or I don't really think we should interrupt that ACT schedule with a spring break. There's been some question about, we've got spring sports, we've got all these other things. Well, we don't halt everything for sports over Christmas. Sports go on, activities go on, but, really looking at it, that ACT situation, this really is more student-friendly, for the accommodation window and what have you. Now, there's some other districts that we know just aren't paying attention to that because they have some other things they're manipulating. But again, this is our recommendation of what we think is a student-friendly schedule. The other piece is in April, on the 18th, there's, I think that's over Easter, where typically in the past you've had Monday as a work professional development day. We're looking at putting it on Thursday for the sole reason of we're trying again to be more collaborative, and we're doing some things with St. Croix Central. And Trish, who else? Is that just St. Croix Central?
Right now, it's just St. Croix.
Yeah, I think we got a grant with some professional development that we're trying to tie up, and that's why we wanted to move it to that day. If you want to go to Monday, it's not a deal killer, but it's just, again, trying to be more collaborative and flexible, in our schedule.
Are you talking April 18th, Mark?
Right, yeah,
As opposed to
yeah.
the 22nd?
Yeah, because we've got that on the 12th, so look, if we move that professional development date to the 18th, that's what we're recommending. Again, it's not a deal killer, but again, it's trying to be more collaborative and changing the way we bring, the more we get teachers talking to teachers, that's why that head camp day is valuable to us, so wherever that falls, we try to make an accommodation. So I think that hits all the change pieces. Again, we're still trying to honor that 21st of January day, and it maybe a full day for everyone, but for sure the high school. But no one's getting shorted on any other time, even though we're moving, trying to hit the trimester piece also, which to me, again, I think makes sense to give them time. And that may develop into a full day too, but again, at least we'd have the option, so.
So at the end of the year, is there any plan to do like another day?
It depends if we call off school or, our
Well,
schedule's
you know what
really,
I mean about, because we had.
yeah, we got
the
lucky
work
last
done
year.
on
Yeah.
the strategic plan, so
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you wanna.
I think last year was an
dedicate a day to
anomaly. I'd love to have more time like that. I think the last time you had time like that before this last year,
Last
you,
2, 3 years.
did you use it for professional development or?
Mhm.
Okay. I sent out that piece today that had the minutes of our days and things like that. We're on the shorter to average, on that end. It's nothing that I'm gonna get whipped up about or say, hey, we gotta change this right now and have longer days. But you can kind of see how our schedule, it pinches some of the things when you don't have those extra minutes. Again, good or bad, I think we should really take a look at it for the 19-20 calendar. I think, again, for next year, the 18-19, these aren't drastic changes, but they're moving the ball ahead to accomplish some of the things we want to accomplish. But, Katie, I'd love to have that time at the end of the year, because that's when I think our goal setting and what have you should really be done for the next year. But again, I'm still trying to get used to the schedule here where we develop those in September, October. So to me, it's a little behind, but that's just the system that's in place.
I just know they really appreciated that time to spend together.
Yeah, I think anytime you can give them duty-free time, when teachers have time to work on things, incredible things happen. As a principal, I've learned that a long time ago. It's just how can we best utilize the time we have, and you see in some of the things initiatives we work on, people need training. And training today is so different than my vintage. My vintage is someone stand in front of me and tell me or come and point on the paper to me, where today everything's webinars or online or find it yourself, and that's a lot of us haven't. I'm not comfortable with that, and I think there's a few people of my age, maybe not too many, but again, it's a learning thing. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
I don't want to get anybody in trouble, especially me. I'm already walking down that road.
Okay, but student contact days, is that remain the same?
Pardon? Yes.
Okay.
I think we're at, what are we at, 175?
Yeah, well, it's hours, so DPI, when you break everything out, you look at all your times, they put it out by hours, so you can get it done in fewer days with longer days, that's where you get the bonus, where if you add minutes, then that sometimes gives you time at the end of the year
Would
to
we ever
do
do
some more
that?
of those pieces.
Would we ever do that somewhere on the last week of May? On anybody's agenda?
Well, if we were to start August 15th.
Well, if we added minutes and,
So if you add 10 minutes to the day, it gains you 2 days over the course of the year. So, I mean, you
Yeah,
would
it's-
have to significantly lengthen our day in order to get out that much earlier. But that is, something that we
It
could,
adds up though.
they do add up.
But I think, for the following year, and it'll give us some time to take a really good look at that. If that's somewhere we wanna go, because right now, as the information I sent out, you'll see we're kind of on the short but average, it's nothing drastic, but it does cause, some pinches.
Well, then if you lengthen the day to shorten the year, then you add daycare. So then that affects the families. So families are scrambling with that. And, so I think if families had their choice, it would be year-round school and then.
That
I
is
know,
true.
that's what they want.
Yeah.
Trish, you've worked with the other conference schools and really did a lot of legwork on some of the
Yeah.
collaborative things we're doing. Is there anything you want to add to?
Well, I just would like to comment on what you just said, Patty, because we just talked about that today. As we were meeting as an IT department, and we had all sorts of other fingers out there, and we were talking about the calendar and what people thought, and it came up again. Year round, year round, year round. And we have that in our strategic plan to start investigating and start the conversation. It's not in there that we will go year round. It is start the conversation. And if you think back to that advisory group, the community group, when they picked what they wanted to start talking about first, it was year-round. It
Yeah,
was,
that was very, I don't think you were there for the strategic plan. Yeah, and that was parents and kids that wanted year-round, because they spend so much time catching up and that. And again, that daycare piece, and there's just so much that not being in school and having a flexible schedule makes sense to them. And it's an interesting conversation, but your most successful schools
right.
are year-round and that, so, I mean, it's
Interestingly
interesting.
enough, I've gotten many questions about when spring break 2019 was going to be in the last month,
Oh, yeah.
because people are already planning their spring break 2019
Mhm.
vacations. And that's been an opportunity to talk about the school schedules in general, and every parent that I've talked to has been excited to engage in that conversation.
Yeah, having experienced my first summer school here,
Mhm.
we might as well have year-round.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the number of kids that participate in this, if it was structured differently as an option,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
there's, we just gotta figure a way to get funding for it.
yeah. I mean, it's,
Well, and
Oh,
Wisconsin.
wait, yeah, we just gotta figure out a way to get funding.
I know.
but I mean, it's the reality, that family dynamics are changing and what their demands are changing, and it's like 21st century, and it's the way it is. And, you know, the whole Labor Day to Memorial Day was based on farmers, and we don't have farmers anymore, and even farming is highly technical. It's, you know, very few farmers are the 30 cow, 200 acre farms anymore. They're large farms that are run with technical machinery and multiple employees, so it's a whole different game now.
So this will be on business meeting,
Approval.
right, so if you have any other questions in between now and, meeting, you know, give me a yell and we'll see what we can do.
All right, Fastbridge.
Yes. Is Hudson still talking about year-round, Miss Nancy?
They have not begun the conversation, they need to survive the remodel. And then they're hoping to begin a conversation.
Was your contract the other day?
Huh?
Was your contract the other day?
Oh, I just drive fast.
Oh, believe me.
Just saying.
I remember they come in, that's why they never did any more work in my last district.
6 years, too short.
All right, Fastbridge, one of our newest tools that we brought into our little arsenal. We're just in the beginning stages. We just went through a second round of screening across campus. Our high school's been through one round of screening, so as days go by and we're learning together the best ways to use. Oh, did you turn me on? There we go. The best ways to use this tool. So you already see this in a document that I think you got at a work session or some time ago, 2 work sessions, sometime. Anyway, I chunked it apart and put some other stuff in here, so hopefully it answers whatever questions you may still have. Fastbridge is another one of the assessment tools that is out there. The unique part of Fastbridge is that it combines many things that we need and we're constantly looking for, that we need across campus, across developmental levels in one platform. So we're able to measure students' skills both on curriculum-based measurement as well as having that computer adaptive test that regulates according to that student's skill level. This particular product measures reading and math to a very high stakes area, but it also has that social, emotional, behavioral component. That is something that we hear over and over, that we're looking for a way to help all of our students, both at a tier 1, meaning everybody, as well as be able to target and help students that need a little more support in any of those areas. Fastbridge gives us that tool and the data that then we can use to have professional discussions, professional dialogue, and make some good decisions for kids.
How does it measure it, Trish?
It's really it's through a tool called SAVERS, which is Social, Academic, Emotional, Behavioral Risk Screener. It's basically a 20-question screener that the kids go through and take, and the questions are such that it sorts them out and gives them a risk level in the different categories. And I'll show you some stuff as we go.
And sorry to
Go ahead.
interject
Yep.
too, but so teachers can rate them, and then also, I think it's 2nd through 12th grade.
12th grade.
Students can also rate themselves.
We're using it we're stepping into this lately. You know, this is a lot of big learning happening pretty quickly. And people, what's really cool is when I first took this role, we didn't really using data was like, what? You know, what we're doing data? You know, that, oh, state assessments, well, we teach the whole child. Those were some of the quotes that we heard across campus. And now people are just hungry for data. So we do have people using that component already, mostly our special ed folks. Navigating their way through it, but we do have some training coming up that I'll get to. All of those things, the really nice part about being one platform is it dumps into some reports, customizable reports, and helps with some interventions. It gives some guidelines, it gives some recommendations. So, why would FastWorks be a good product? Because it really helps us quickly, and that's key. I don't know if you remember, we used a tool called Performance Series. We used that for many, many years. Some of our kids, especially our high flyers, because it was adaptive, the adaptive part, were sitting in front of a computer screen for well over an hour. Because it would keep adapting until it tried to find the area in which they redeemed their skill level. This one is a much quicker, I think our time has been going, what I heard from elementary folks is about 20 minutes or so, is that right?
That's true. Was it just the e-reading or e-math?
Yeah, the initial be a computer adaptive screener, much quicker, and that in itself saves so much time over the long haul. It gives us some accurate metrics because this was developed from U of M, along with some other researchers. Putting together, it's been used for quite a long time actually. 30 states are using it. Iowa adopted it across the state, so it's a really well-used product. Anyway, it is one platform, and as a district assessment coordinator, we are always pulling our hair out when we go to CISA, because if you look at the assessments we have from pre-K through 12 that the state mandates we take, the state could have chosen one platform. They could have. They could have chosen ACT, because they have that all the way up the line. They did not. They chose Wisconsin Forward Exam, which is 3-8 all the way up, Aspire, ACT Work Keys, Access Testing. We have all sorts of stuff. Each one of those has its own platform, its own way we get kids in, different ways that we have to log in, different ways of training, different rules, and different reports. So this gives us what we want, which is one platform. We use it for screening. We can use that for progress monitoring those kids, RTI support. It has that SABRS, or social emotional behavioral skills. The reporting is automatic and it integrates, and it also has on-demand training, which is sweet because, I'm sorry, what?
It integrates with what? You said it, the automated reporting integrates with?
So all of the assessments come together. So we don't just see the screening data, we don't just see we can see them come together.
It automatically, who puts it all in?
They take most of these online. Some are paper pencil, you do have that option for all these. In fact, the elementary did all paper pencil for their assessment days because we had some glitches, and we still have a few glitches. Our Infinite Campus wouldn't talk to Illuminate. Illuminate is our data warehouse that we were struggling with to get systems to integrate there. So we've had to go to a third party. Because we go through Illuminate to get to FAST for logins, it created a huge big barrier when we started this rollout process. Our elementary was doing all of their assessments paper pencil. Then we entered that data. We do not have to do that. Kids can go
We
online.
did it this winter, computerized, awesome, way better.
Mhm. So we've gotten over that hurdle. But the nice piece is you can look at a child through many different lenses. Or we can evaluate a program, or we can look at a classroom, or a grade level, or a school building, or the district. So multiple ways to look at data. Training part of it. They have a lot of options. We have tapped into most of these and will continue to do that. Lots of flexible options. We have web-based learning, which means they have modules online, give you an overview and a step-by-step guidance. Most of them are about 7 lessons. So for example, a reading, you'd click and see the overview. You'd click in and you'd see a demonstration of it. You'd click in, it says here's how you implement it. You'd click in and say here's how the reporting looks, and so on. At the end, there's like 10-question little test to see if you understood what you read, all online. There are also video tutorials, which are pretty sweet. In fact, they just did one, it's actually in the knowledge base, where they talked about how to look at winter screening data. So, online, short videos that help us as we are moving through the different parts of the test. There's also a knowledge base. The knowledge base is just a bank where you can type in a keyword. We were doing that today, looking at how to look at some of the reports that might be best this time of year. Because this time of year, you really need to look at student data specifically. We're not looking at how a grade level did. We're not looking at how a building did or evaluating programs. We're looking at kids and saying, what do we need to do if they're not growing at the rate we want? Help desk has been great. People that have struggled with some questions go right in help desk, they submit a ticket, and it responds back to them. The other thing they have is some web-based and online professional development options. We have used that in both of its forms. I thought I had that next. We have used that in both of its forms. We have done 2 webinars for FAST. One was supposed to be on-site professional development at this point. However, our trainer ended up doing a presentation with Douglas Reeves, who is a very big deal in the educational world, and so had to be somewhere else. So we ended up doing that online. That had a few glitches in itself with connectivity, but we have more coming up the line. We'll get to that too. Okay, the reporting pieces in FAST. The nice piece is it tracks and monitors student learning and growth, so achievement and growth, and it does that multiple ways, both by looking at benchmark data, what do they need to achieve, are they on the track for a college pathway, are they at risk, how much at risk are they, and so on. It does compare individual and group skills, to different benchmarks at grade level or at developmental levels. So really easy ways to track, lots of norm data. You can norm it with your district, you can norm it with their national norms and so on, but it is a scale score, so you can look at how kids go on an equal interval scale. Now I'm bringing in my lovely school psychologist because she is one of our point people that we have helping with implementation. I'm going to make it bigger for you.
Yeah, it's little.
Got it.
So yeah, Trish just asked me to share a little bit about how we're using it and how I look at the data with it, because I look at lots of data all the time. In my opinion, I feel like it's been a pretty seamless process. So in terms of, she talked about performance series, that's what we use for some of our benchmark assessments. We're now able to use this, it's all on one platform. And then what I look at a lot of the time is looking at our intervention data. And we use this for the progress monitoring piece. So if you look here, this first example is looking at a 5th grade reading fluency intervention group. So an interventionist or a special ed teacher would have their group together, and just a few things, if you scroll down a little bit, I just put some important things to look at. So teacher has their entire intervention group right there for them. It's got, you look at that first number right here is the start. So that's kind of that screening data, what they're able to look at, and then the green arrows. At first it was like, what are these green arrows for? What are the red arrows? What does all this mean? And then you can type it in that knowledge base and really understand what they're talking about. So you can just quickly at a glance look, yep, the green arrows making progress. Red arrows, they're either staying the same or it's declining. If the clock is there, it means they have assessments that are right there able to look at. This tool is very, very similar to what we used to have, which was Ames Web. However, especially for somebody that looks and wants to look at data really quickly, having it all in one place and able to pull an entire intervention group, and then in that next graph, looking at their progress graph. So it gives that perfect visual of, in a quick snapshot, are they making progress? Are they doing what we need them to do? Are they responding to the interventions the way that we want them to? So that dotted line is, from the goal, from the start of the intervention to where we want them to be, to hopefully get them up to the grade level. All the dots, kind of the scatter, is each individual score, and then the solid line is that student's actual rate of improvement. So kind of showing, yep, they're right on track. Before, so myself, Ms. Eichten, school counselors, we look at this intervention data every week. In our old assessment tool, we would have to go back and forth to between each graph. I mean, I truly feel like this has saved hours of my time to be able to just quickly look, yep, in 10 to 12 intervention groups, how quickly and accurately we're able to get that information. So yeah, that's just an individual student progress. Really other,
It's coming.
yeah. Some other useful tools that it's like, wow, it just tracks it all there for us. Would we be able to probably dig into some of this with Ames Web before? Yeah, we could probably see which words were they getting wrong, but this just pulls it out and tracks it. All of these are their frequently missed words, and if they're on track and able to just quickly look at, so I know they're constantly missing these words each week in their probes. And so then teachers know what they need to work on with that. So that's just kind of a quick snapshot. And then the last one, which is the one that I've used probably the most, is looking at the group screening reports. It's got lots of different information, especially when we do the the fall, winter, spring benchmarks, and it's quickly just able to disaggregate the data for us. You're able to, you talked about, if they're at high risk, some risk, if they're average, or in that college or career pathway, and you can look to see, in the fall, if this was, it breaks it down for grade levels. So in the fall, 15% were high risk. We have to be concerned about that group, but then you can look and see, in the winter, we actually went down to 12% now. So it's just, quickly you're able to look at, and that's the whole grade data. I took off what the student name is, so then we break it down, so the student, their fall score, their winter score, breaks it down for the middle school, their percentile ranks, how they compare in the district, and then the national percentile ranks. Lots of really good data, quickly and easily accessible to me. Questions?
That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a lot, and it's learning by doing. I mean, it's a brand new tool. We're still trying to figure out how, we keep going back to, well, Ames Web used to, or Performance Series used to, or some of us around MAPS used to. So it's really kind of feeling comfortable as a professional to look at data and make decisions from the data, not expecting the data to make the decisions for us. So Jesse talked about that group screening report. I just put a snapshot in here. This is fake student data, so I wasn't worried about blocking it off. I did give you a link to the reporting site on FAST. It does show you all of the other reports. Far too much information, I'm sure, but they have beautiful reports that pull the data and put it in a usable fashion depending on what you're looking for. Again, this time of year, we're really looking for that growth report to see what kids are doing what. I mean, who do we need to intervene on? What needs to happen before the end of the year so that they are successful moving forward. Also, great data for our SLOs, for educator effectiveness. So this report is really a sweet one. What we hope to come in next generation is this little FastBridge Illuminate friend here. As you know, Hudson, Amory, and Somerset all jumped into Illuminate because we had originally planned on EduClimber. EduClimber was a data warehouse so that people like, if you think back, Corey Lindenberg, who did those crazy Excel sheets that spent so much time, this was going to give us that platform that was just going to and give it what he needed. Illuminate, we just had another conference call and we have a Western Wisconsin conference next week, hasn't delivered what we had thought we had purchased. They are a fabulous assessment tool with a data warehouse. We thought they were a data warehouse with an assessment tool. I don't know if you understand what I mean going by that, but when they came in, they said, we can do what EduClimber can do and we'll give you more. We really were looking for that data warehouse first, assessment second, because we are very good and very skilled at assessment using Google Classroom and all sorts of other tools at our fingertips. FastBridge and Illuminate, when we really start clocking, and this is a slow process, we still are getting behavior data into Illuminate, having it talk to Infinite Campus. Hopefully we'll be able to help us. This is one example of really pulling in the data and integrating the information from FAST, turning it into action in Illuminate. In Illuminate, we really can tie different screening scores, different benchmarks to action. At a quick glance, we know who has no risk, some risk, and so on. We can color code, really making the data useful for people at a glance without them doing the hard-hitting work. If you haven't heard, Illuminate has since purchased EduClimber, so they've acquired that tool, which is good news because we were a little sad of what was happening with us. It was going far too slow for us, and we really are moving slowly and strategically. We just talked with the trainer, and she is saying that that platform will be a multi-platform down the road. She's not giving us a date, but one of her slides said Q2. We'll see what Hudson found out because she's coming in next week to talk to us about it. So the two together will be fabulous. Back to FAST. Our implementation here was a bit rocky in the beginning because of that lack of integration. Our teachers had to use demo sites for some of this, fully accessible demo sites, but they didn't log in with their username and password. They still had complete access to all the modules, all the training, all the reports, and so on. So August 30th, we had our first training for system orientation and navigation, which is the first part of the Welcome to the FAST World. On October 6th, one of our PD days, we dedicated time during that day so that teachers could go through and do the self-paced online modules, making sure they had time to get that done. That was the time when a few people did not have access through their login, but were able to use a demo site that Chris Balo had given us access to. Using FAST data and reports after we went through the first screener, was supposed to be our in-house, in-person webinar that turned out to be in-person training, turned out to be a webinar that we did for all people who gave the screener and then interventionists. Sabers were, as we're talking mental health, as we're talking the social, academic, emotional, behavioral piece, we will be giving our Sabers to 100% of our students that it applies to. So we will be doing training the week of March 19th for spring implementation across campus. Training will be there. We've also tapped into other schools that have done this across to see what happens after you get that data, because that's just as important as getting that data. We have identified building level point people. Those are our school psychs who are in that data all the time. As we know, the elementary got their school psych a little later than anticipated, so they were a little bit behind on that, but now we're up to speed. We have Western Wisconsin regional meetings, fall and winter, with our neighborhood schools who are also trying to do implementation of Illuminate and the collection of data. And then, of course, our mid-year review and forward planning. That happens this month.
So what's the mid-year review and forward planning?
So mid-year review and forward planning is really talking with Kate, who is connecting us to Illuminate, who's touching all the FAST data, and what does that all look like together, turning our data into action.
So you talked about the social emotional state, is that Sabers?
Yes,
You said all kids, and then you said,
because it's
That's
not
some
K
kids.
and 1.
oh, okay,
It's not
so,
appropriate for kindergarten or first grade.
so
That is a
second,
T-SCAS.
so 2nd to 12, all kids,
Correct.
got it.
Hand 1 is a teacher rating system.
Mm-hmm.
It's not normed, it's not appropriate.
Okay.
And is Sabers a mental health screening tool or a social emotional executive functioning, or what's?
It stands for social emotional, oh my gosh, social academic emotional behavioral risk screener. So it's a little bit of the whole thing there.
And then does the YRBS tie into that?
That'd be a different point of data. But yes, we could cross-reference those two pieces of data and get a nice picture of the needs of our kids, the needs of our.
Okay.
We take that again this spring.
Oh, do ya?
It'll be perfect timing.
So can we just talk about a couple of practical things? So I know that you said if somebody trying to put in the data has run into an issue, they can email.
They have multiple things they can do.
Do they have a phone number do they have a help desk?
Yes.
And they can call, so everybody knows that phone number? They can just call.
They have multiple ways to contact. The quickest way is the point person in the building, because they're pretty easy to find how to navigate. But they also have a help desk that you can put in a ticket. I've never
can't
called
call?
them.
I know they have a phone number.
I've
I
never
have not
called,
called.
I put in help tickets all the time and they respond immediately to email. And then if you need additional follow-up, all my questions have been answered, so then it's just, I've never.
Well,
had an
I
issue.
would just suggest that maybe you get the phone number out so that people can call if they run into, because I pick up the phone and we've got a help desk. And a help desk for our software too. If we're running into glitches, and I feel like some of their service has not been that great, so it would be nice to expect
Open
a
up
little
all
more of
avenues.
them. And I know that in the contract, it called for 3 full-day on-site trainings.
That's Illuminate.
At certain, right, but that's who you have to go through for this, according to the contract.
Well, yes, they are, that's been part of our problem with it not talking to Infinite Campus, because we've had to go through Illuminate to get to FAST, yes.
Okay, so maybe I'm not.
So Illuminate, yes, you're exactly right, Katie. It was Illuminate is our main, because they have a partnership and affiliation, we go through Illuminate for answers first.
Right.
FAST, however, does have their own help desk, their help ticket desk, and they have been very,
But you have to go
respond.
through Illuminate first?
training, yes, we go through
But not
Illuminate
for maybe
first, but
help
not for
desk.
help, correct.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, since we didn't get the 3Ds,
Mhm.
can we still get that so that, we can do some classes during professional development days, or so that there is somebody actually here, so somebody can say, look, this is what I'm getting when I'm trying to do this, and have it be somebody from the vendor who is ultimately responsible for making their product work. Does that, would that be an additional expense because of the timing of it?
No, you know what, they've been pretty good to us because they have admittedly not been extremely helpful. And they want us to be a satisfied customer because they are actually making their way and now acquiring EduClimber. I keep looking at you, Nancy, because I know you know what I'm talking about. So you guys are dealing with the same thing. So she is not charging us. Illuminate came and did 2 on-site already. We've trained our, we've trained our building leadership. That's how we did our data retreats and so on. They come in on the other side and they help with the fast implementation. So they've done that, but because of the hiccups and the giddy-ups and the frustration, and we continually are chatting with them, we just actually have arranged another date for her to come in and help set up reports, and then she will be back, and then we've got summer PD already planned to help with this.
So I'm just, can they not teach the people putting in the data if they're coming or trying to do a report? I don't know exactly how it works. And I'm confused with the whole EduClimber.
Oh, EduClimber?
So are you saying it'll be, instead of FastBridge, it'll be EduClimber?
No, EduClimber is a data warehouse, a really robust, quite, they visualize data beautifully, much like Corey Lindenberg was trying to show us how he's making data visual.
Yeah.
So that's what we started with, and then Illuminate came around the corner and said, but we can give you a standards-based grade book, we can do this. It was like, oh, you are amazing, yes, this is great. Hudson said, this is great. Amory said, this is great, and we all went in. But what we're finding out is Illuminate doesn't have the quick power to make data visual. You have to do a lot of programming. And for our district our size, we don't have programmers, nor do we want our teachers spending that kind of time creating these visuals. It's crazy. So, in having some hard conversations with our friends who brought on EduClimber, we're like, maybe we should think about this. And that night, I am not joking, across Twitter came Illuminate purchased EduClimber. So they're gonna be one company. Mhm.
Okay, I get it.
They acquired the company. So according to Illuminate, Kate Pahacek, said they will have the best of both worlds. So we'll have the good assessment stuff, we'll have the access to grade books and such. They're creating something called Illuminate IQ, where you'll have that way to visualize data quickly, because they're bringing in EduClimber. And hopefully we'll move to one platform. I'm excited about that opportunity, but it's not gonna be overnight.
No, and let's do baby steps anyway, because,
Hallelujah.
yeah, you know, when you start something August 30th, it's like, oh, God. And
Yeah.
them not having access to the old.
Yeah, we actually
Software.
started this journey, if you remember, in June. This was June and July and the beginning of August and the middle of August, and it was a data transfer problem between Infinite Campus and Illuminate, and they didn't have the people to help us, and we didn't have the know-how to get it done, so it was.
Illuminate had previously always worked with large districts
Yes.
who have people who manage their data and others. And so then they took on a bunch of clients in Wisconsin that are smaller schools who do not employ people who do that. And so all of these smaller schools who switched have experienced the same problem, have struggled with the implementation because of that. Do we have an implementation timeline over multiple years with expectations for different users, and how are we monitoring and adjusting that?
We have monitored and adjusted, not joking. Yes, with Kate, we have developed a timeline that is appropriate for what we wanted to do, which was to first bring on the data warehouse, so people can look at data quickly, bringing in the fast data, our local data, and so on, and that was to take place this year. We are at a starting over point with Illuminate because of our glitches. So, but it's okay, because they are really trying to be helpful and trying to satisfy the customers, and we're really partnering with Amory and Hudson. They're starting in, I told you about Illuminate IQ, which will also have an exchange component. So anything built in Somerset can be used by Amory, can be used by Hudson, and so on. And thank you, Hudson, for being one step ahead of us, because they already have some things built that we're going to deal. Yeah, it was not today, it was good. Anyway, so we are gonna finish this year really cleaning up the data warehouse partner data. The beautiful part is it really helped us clean up some of our inconsistencies across campus. For example, behavior codes. The elementary has done their own behavior codes for a long time. Middle school's done theirs, high school's done theirs. When you use a tool that is a data warehouse, we need consistency. So we need to clean that up. And it has highlighted some of those things that we have been working on our side to make us a more efficient system. So that will be this year. This summer, we're looking at bringing on some of the assessment components and running a pilot group with a small group of teachers who are interested in kind of forging ahead using some of the assessment components and integrating that in. So we have that all documented.
And I just, from the time that we heard about these possibilities, I like data. I'm a big fan of it, if you can harness it. And if it's better if there's a successful rollout. It makes it much harder when it's not. And so I'd encourage the phone number to Fastbridge being given out and Illuminate, or tell them who they need to contact. I don't think it should be on Jess to be the person.
And I'm totally fine with being that first line of, the transition from Ames to Fastbridge, when you have a lot of that training, it was pretty seamless, but you gotta kind of work through it. So if there's something that I can help, and I know Alyssa would feel the same way, that, yeah, let's try to deal with that in-house first, and then kind of go out. I guess I hadn't even thought about the phone number piece, because the emails have been so efficient, and Ames had a phone number, and yep, we could call it all the time. I don't know if, I haven't tried to access it yet, to be honest, so maybe that's how they deal with their help desk. I don't know.
Well, I think sometimes with the data piece, is we're going through a new data thing with ERP. And when you're of a certain generation, you need that person to talk to. Because I just look at it as a lot of clicking. And I like the end piece of data, but it's that getting there that's the hard part. And so I think anything we can do to make it a little easier on the people who are inputting whatever that data is, because if that doesn't get in correctly, then the whole thing is skewed. So I know for me, I have the helpline on speed dial. I just say it's needy Patty. And they answer my questions, but a lot of it's harder for me than it is for other people, just because I'm went from using a pencil and paper.
I do either. That's what, before I can pick up the phone and call, absolutely, but I guess I just haven't, I don't know.
And I guess from my point of view, it's just knowing that, because Jess and Melissa, I would prefer teachers to go to them and then call together, because that teacher's not the only one that's gonna see that glitch or have that experience. So I really like having Jess and Melissa, because they are dialed into it like really well, so they would know another tool that they could help other teachers who saw the same thing. So to me, having two people, even if it's a phone call or in there, do it together, is probably more efficient.
And along those lines, I think we've done a lot of emails, and I think when we get an email back, we're all getting the same information, and we can copy it and store it somewhere. I think each building has Google Docs that they've started for frequent questions that people are asking. So we have the same response.
Yep.
And if somebody's already searched it, they can just look up there.
Yeah, having Alyssa has greatly helped the elementary, having that one person, because we're fortunate enough, we have 3 title teachers, and so they've kind of all tried, but when you have 3, having one is a lot tighter, so spent significant time with those 3, and Alyssa and myself kind of getting involved and kind of being a support network for people. Spent a fair amount of staff meeting time. Again, this Wednesday we'll go through, now that we've got our winter data entered and used. So it's certainly, I think, headed the right direction, and having Alyssa and then just kind of learn from too has been awesome. So.
How much time does it take to enter all this data?
Are you talking through FAST? FAST is automatic, so when a kid takes the A math and the A reading, they finish, boom, their scale score's there, their NPR is there, anything they need is there.
So
When teachers are administering the probes, the weekly probes for kids who are in intervention, again, those are online. So the kid finishes it, and boom, the data's right there. So there's no data entry anymore, which we did have to do in Ames. I mean, math tests were all paper pencil, they had to be hand scored and then hand entered. So that has saved time.
So then where is the problem? If everything is automatic,
Just understanding
It's the
using the data.
It's a new platform, it's something different.
And the data is normed a little differently, there's different tools, we have a lot of tools to choose from, so a lot of the pieces we're figuring out really have to do with having some really strong professional dialogue on what we are going to use and why we're going to use it, and why this is a better tool for this child and versus this child, and because there's so many tools, it's a learning curve. It's not a data entry as much, but there's times we really need to take piece by piece and have some good conversation and forge a path.
And that's why I think, it's necessary to have somebody here, and so that you can answer those back and forth questions and have that discussion.
That's valuable. You don't know what you don't know until you go. I mean, you can have someone come and tell you all day until they go in there and say, what report was that?
Or go online and.
You're not gonna, I mean, when you're saying to have someone teach, it's not as valuable as, I'm using it, hey Jess,
Yeah.
what's this part, and then you walk through it, oh, you remember it.
Yeah.
To Bruce's point, I mean, I've sat in quite a few trainings at Fastbridge, and every single time I go into it, I learn something.
Yeah.
I mean, even again today, I went through it, I'm like, I got this, and Tricia's like, hey, what about this? And every time you learn something, and so I think there's certainly a place for the PD having a central person, having more, but honestly, what I'm trying to do is just create the time that I provide the time, staff meeting time, those types of things, where we just get in the data, use it, have me to kind of guide, I have the title staff, and Alyssa will float around and help people with it, and just, I kind of previewed what we're gonna do in Wednesday's meeting with my PLC leaders last week, so they're kind of ready and able to help support, and we're part of that plan too. So it's, every time you get in it, you get better at it, you get more comfortable with it. You don't feel 100%, but you get closer each time.
So you don't think you need Illuminate or a Fastbridge here?
So two different things. Fastbridge, I think we're getting much better and much more confident. Illuminate, honestly, what I think we need is, and we were in a meeting today, Trish and Sarah and Amy and I, about like how to get the data entered for us so we can just get in and use it. I mean, because what right now staff would have to do is make their own reports, and some are doing that. A few of the high-end users, I think there's one over there who might be doing that. But I think just, to have some of those, I have a vision of what I'd like to see at the elementary of, per kid, so in problem-solving meetings, we can bring up, hey, this is how Jimmy's doing, this is his attendance, his behavior, his grades. And so just trying to get those reports. I mean, I don't know how many emails, Trish, I've sent for the behavior, to try and get that centralized. And finally today, is it about 2 o'clock today, Sarah? We have common behavior codes
we
across
do.
campus. So,
Shannon, I hope you're ready.
I like it. Sounds good.
remember that. So I think there's some things on our end we can fix, like the behavior codes. In the end, it's something we can control. But some of the others, they can help us enter, because that's not our specialty. Our specialty is working with kids,
Yeah, and you
not
should be
doing
spending all
that.
your
So I
time.
think the training there might come in the end on how to use some of those perhaps, but right now, Fastbridge, we just gotta get in it, and Illuminate, we just need them to do some of the processing for us.
And they have offered to do that for us as kind of a olive branch.
Yep.
So,
So I would just like to validate and appreciate the work of our leaders, supporting our staff through this massive, massive change, and the work of teacher leaders who are jumping in and taking the risk to figure out where to click and helping everyone else, because this is a massive, massive change. And I mean, some people buy the same model car their entire life because they want to know where the blinkers are. And this is, this is like you hop in your car and you don't know which things to flip. And particularly in education, we don't have the money or time to invest in learning like other industries do. I mean, my mom's an x-ray tech, and when she learned her new digital x-ray machine, she not only had a week of training, she had a coach side by side with her for over a week. And they invested in it until she felt comfortable. So in education, teachers don't even have enough time today to do their day-to-day tasks, much less to be learning new tools. So I know that this has been a challenge for everyone involved, the leaders and the teacher leaders and the teachers doing it, but it is very valuable data to improve our system, and thank you for persevering and calling the help desk and emailing and listening to everyone's valid viewpoint throughout the change cycle, and please celebrate how far you've come, because it will support us in doing lots of great things for our kids.
I'd like to say thank you also, I mean, taking on data.
That's funny.
Adding that to the pile. you know, and the expectations are there. Everybody expects, but they don't realize what the responsibility that goes with it. And I'm sure a lot of you have taken a lot of this home and figured out this stuff at home on your own time, and thank you very much for doing that, because I think that in the end, we will reflect with all these changes we're making that 20th century education is not gonna happen in Somerset, it's 21st century. We're setting the line high, and I like it a lot.
All right, so any other questions about Fastbridge? All right, so we're moving on to item number 9, the curriculum, instruction, and assessment, and IT budgets.
Hi. Okay, anyone have a go? Yeah. No, I didn't. Okay, just very quickly, back when you were talking about budgets and who does what and what do they do and what budgets do they oversee, it's my turn. So just a little kind of a peek into the budgets that I watch over, that we make decisions around, and that after approval, we use to better the system. So my budget oversight really is 2 big buckets. Thank you, Jess.
Yeah.
It's the curriculum instruction assessment, kind of big bucket, and underneath that, the federal, state, and local grants we oversee youth options. The other big bucket is IT. So a few years back, I went into a partnership with our IT folks, and sorry, sometimes it feels that way, right? Right? It's a lot of fun, because there's different kinds of thinkers, and when you put different kinds of thinkers in a room, great things come out. I also monitor from afar kind of our substitute costs. I don't have a lot of control over that, except how I use it for professional development. We do not have a huge number of subs in the district, but we still try to get our people out to as many professional development opportunities that CISA offers, or conferences, conventions that are relevant to the work of our strategic plan and the work that they do. So in curriculum resources and instructional staff training, I just want you to take a peek. Hopefully you already have this. One big bucket, I should back up, is our curriculum resources. Along with that comes instructional staff training. For example, this year, my budget is largely used to wrap up our ELA adoption. Things like ELA and science are very big adoptions when it comes to budget and training. We brought on 5th grade, trying to build that bridge from the elementary to the middle school, making it a full K-5 adoption. So with that, some of my budget really went to bringing along our 5th grade. Lots of resources going there, lots of training time over the last 2 years.
What do you mean by adoption?
Meaning we're bringing on resources that they can use and
New
acquire. So
curriculum
journeys.
or something.
It was journeys that we did a couple years ago that we had chatted about, yes. Books, teacher manuals, online resources, student editions, lots of things that they can use to hit their essential standards. So this year also was AP Chemistry, was our new course we brought on at the high school. That is a big cost course. Even if we had a small number of students in it, the equipment that they need really costs quite a lot of money. We've been writing a lot of grants and forming partnerships with different organizations, different companies that have helped support the materials, the equipment that we need for AP Chemistry. We also did Science 612. That is going extremely well. The one thing to note is that with both of these resources, there's a very robust online presence. Lots of great online resources, great online learning, assessments that can be given online, communication can be online, instructional materials online, which what that means is we need more access for our kids online. So we'll talk about that in just a second as well. This, in preparation for next year, this year we are piloting social studies, having them look at the C3 frameworks, look at the new draft standards that are coming out, and they are doing a pilot with the same company, McGraw-Hill, that we use for science that has gone so well. If indeed that works out well, it would be very beneficial because we'll be using one online platform for all those students as they move through the middle school. Again, back to the blinker analogy, right? K-5 science is the other place we're going. Science is extremely expensive. We are looking at FOSS K-5 and touching and feeling, and we've had some training times where FOSS trainers have come in. We're also looking at McGraw-Hill for K-5. So they're doing a pilot of 2 different companies after having some work with next generation science standards that we did 2 years ago. So that's where most of my curriculum budget comes in and the instructional staff training that goes with it. I also do the fund district and building level interventions, things like Lexia, Mobi Math, Read Live, and on. Those are annual subscriptions that we evaluate and determine how many seats, if any, that we need moving into the next year. Project Lead the Way is also under my umbrella, looking at how we fund another very expensive program, but very amazing. All of Eric Olson's work that he does with that group. We do a lot of grant writing also to supplement that. Virtual ed and then local assessments like FastBridge and Illuminate all fall underneath this particular part of my budget. Some of the grants that I oversee that we use to supplement, ESSA has rolled through, used to be No Child Left Behind, then ESEA, now ESSA. Some of the monies and oversight that you see under there, Title I, which we use primarily for staffing in our district. Title II is primarily professional development that we use to fund some of our PLC work and some of the trainers we bring in. Title III is a very, very, very small amount of money that we get for our district, so it all goes back to CESA as part of a consortium that they then help us with training and as a resource. Title IV is brand new this year. It's about $9,000 and it's to be used for 3 different things. It's primarily for the whole child wellness, technology, safety, those pieces. We are using them to go with our strategic plan, the wellness component of our strategic plan, our technology training, and really working on our math scores and getting some math professional development. Carl Perkins is the last federally funded, very content-specific grant that we oversee. It's for career technical ed. That amount varies each year, both for resources and professional development. At the state level, we have some grants. We have the Peer Mentor Grant that we wrote with New Richmond and St. Croix Central, doing some combined PD and some strategizing together. We just were granted a robotics grant that'll be very helpful to help our teams travel to both state and potentially national, which is neat. Educator Effectiveness is also a grant that comes through the state that helps to pay for us implementing that, but really for the My Learning Plan licenses. So our online software, they reimburse us per educator. Locally, little one like Anne Marie has been always so amazing, helping us really fund some of the different projects we have going on, and they make a large donation to Project Lead the Way in the fall, if you write the grant. Tuitions and partnerships, college in the schools, you've been hearing all about that. We brought that on campus. We have a lot of kids in the college in the schools. It's great. It is just great. The instruction, the curriculum, the partnership with the University of Minnesota, the partnership with our instructor, with an instructor at the U, the on-site experiences our kids have, and then if they make it through the whole year with certain requirements, six credits from U of M, which is amazing. Youth options, that falls underneath my watch. Youth options is changing, if you have not heard that. It ends actually with this fiscal year, and then it's moving to Early College Credit Program, ECCP, which is the University of Wisconsin system, and they broke apart the technical college, and that's going to be called Start College Now. Rules are being written right now, applications are being developed, and we'll see what that looks like going forward. The other big bucket is IT. So IT really has 3 big places where they spend their money: our hardware, our softwares and renewals, and then projects that are periodic. This year, here are some of the big projects we've taken on. You can take a peek, or I could read them to you, but that's not as fun. But lots with network infrastructure, always going in and evaluating those pieces we need to make things running. We have been really smooth operating actually with our tech department. It's been great. Chromebooks, we've been really trying to increase access. This year we brought in literacy centers, again, as the finish up of our ELA adoption, our literacy adoption. We have 4 or 5, mostly 5, Chromebooks in every classroom so that teachers can have a literacy center at the elementary level. We did buy science carts to go along with the science resources at the middle school and high school. And then we're doing a 1-to-1 pilot for AP chemistry in preparation for our strategic plan next steps. If you've been to the NPR at the high school, you'll notice you can actually see the projected image on the wall now. It's really great, lots of great light. And then this year we really worked on our phone and voicemail upgrades. Getting rid of Gmail, getting rid of Microsoft Office and the server space that was taking up because we really don't need that anymore, moving to Gmail. Next year, here's what we're working on. Our staff laptops are at the end of their, kind of the replacement cycle is up. We have a plan for moving those to our smart boards because they are robust enough that they can run what we need for the smart boards, getting rid of some of those older computers there and replacing our staff laptops with Chromebooks or laptops, depending on what's appropriate and what the educators would, or the teachers would like to use. There's some mixed feelings out there with teachers wanting to have a Chromebook that's light and portable and can slip in a bag, plus they're using those with their kids. Others who really need access to Microsoft Office. Jen Sutton, for example, who has an articulated class. We have end of life and end of support coming up for a few of our things that we must replace. Chromebooks, this is the big deal. In our strategic plan, we have a one-to-one initiative or investigation of how will we do that. That is not on this year's strategic plan, action plans. We would like to kind of we have a vision and we have a plan for what that might look like. We've been investigating it. We went to Slate, investigated what small schools and how they roll that out. So depending on when that comes up, kind of really influences how we're going to be spending our budget and where those new dollars would come from to help fund that project. I will say I hope it comes up sooner than later because of the robust curriculum, the resources are out there. We really want to have Chromebooks in the hands of our kids. As we're looking at the social studies resources right now, the first question that came from that group was, will we get a cart? I'm like, well, it depends on where that one-to-one is going to fall and what our budgets look like. It will need new dollars. We will need new dollars to take that on, and it will be worthwhile. Smart boards. We have been replacing the projectors as they go out. We keep a few on hand, but as our boards are going out, we are moving to looking at interactive touch panel displays. We have one at the middle school right now that we're piloting, and we have one at the high school library. It's actually a tilt that you can have 4 or 5, lots of kids on it, and doing wonderful things. So we're piloting some of those. Those will replace the actual board themselves. And then, of course, renewals and maintenance. That's a big chunk of our money from IT, keeping things going. And that's that.
Where are we at with VMware?
I knew you were going to ask that question.
She always does.
I go, what will Nancy ask? VMware. Okay, here's the deal on VMware. When we came together as a group and took over VMware, we had 700 licenses set up. When we started looking at our analytics, looking at what we were using, we dropped from 700 to 300 now. Currently we have 300. Which each 100 that we drop, because it has to be in increments of 100, we save approximately $3,300. This year, right now, it looks like for next year we can drop to 200. As we bring on Chromebooks and get rid of the thin clients, we're having less VMware use. So we will be down to 200 next year, and then if we go one-to-one, we'll still have some, because we have some places where we need that access for people to get to Microsoft Office, for example, because that's the way they do that, but we'll keep cutting that back.
So if that's the way they do that, why would we need a laptop? Versus a Chromebook?
We have thin clients in some of our labs.
Yep, but when we're thinking about teacher machines, laptop versus Chromebook, if they're accessing Microsoft Office through VMware.
There's only a few people using that. Some of our people that haven't switched over to Google, there's some people that must do it because of the work they do, and some people that want to get to things like Publisher.
But if they're accessing it through VMware, why would we need a laptop?
If they have a laptop, they do not need to go through VMware. Are we following each other? Where are we going? Where are we going with this?
So Chromebooks are much more affordable than laptops. And is it more cost effective to have all Chromebooks and have the Microsoft users who need it continue to access through VMware? Or to provide laptops with the software and eliminate VMware? Because right now we're operating 3 different systems, that's very cost prohibitive.
Right now, our VMware subscriptions are largely because of our labs. That is the reason.
Sure.
I mean, that is where our primary, we're using all of our pieces. Because the only way you can get to the world is through VMware. We just replaced our elementary library with Chromebooks. so they don't have to use VMware spots. They are not using anything through, I see where you're going with this, Costa, I will bring up the manager. So look at this. Yeah, I will take a peek at that, do some cost comparisons, Costa.
And board members, our devices would be up for replacement along with the teachers' devices. So it's possible that they could be replaced with Chromebooks rather than laptops. And so I don't know if we could get one up here that board members could log into, because they are certainly much lighter than what you're currently driving around. And it would save our district money.
I'm gonna vote,
Yeah.
I'm gonna vote Bruce versus laptop.
Well, I mean, how much do we need to, are we using this thing? No, I don't think this is
Yep.
anyone's primary machine,
No.
so, I mean, for a,
And it actually would make us all being logged into the same documents much easier, because when you sign into a Chromebook, you are signed into your Google account. You don't have to worry about which browser you're in and signing in or anything else. So it would actually make our work as a team much more smooth. And we would be able to speak to the benefits for our students by using the same device that we're maybe wanting to go one-to-one with our students. So I would ask that our board members consider that, and maybe we could have some here that board members could log into and see what they look like. It really doesn't feel any different than a laptop. You sign in and you click and you type.
I wanna drive the same car.
Walker's on the same side.
All right, anything else that you'd like to know about?
Do your cars still have that little
No,
clicker
thank
for your
the dimmer.
The dimmer thing, that little clicker that you use with your feet.
How much longer do we have on the labs that do have, because it's a lease for the labs that have the HP boxes rather than the Chrome boxes? How long do we have on those?
That I do not know the answer to. I know that we're scaling back because the more computers we're putting out there for kids, the less and less our labs are being used. We do use them, some teachers really prefer assessing, doing some of the assessments there with the mouse and what have you. It makes it a lot easier for our younger kids in particular. We just took away one lab in your building.
Yeah.
They're becoming obsolete. When you talk about designing our schools, actually having a dedicated lab is something that's really not. Teachers choose to be in their classroom with the devices versus taking kids to a different learning environment. So the more cards we get, the more one-to-one. But I'll get back to you on that. Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right, 10, Dave, order 2, budget to actual.
Yes, thank you. I'm on it.
Oh, you're already out? Okay,
Sorry.
That was not nice of you. You know how much that could cost our district.
I do, actually.
Have a risk assessment right now.
I'm not feeling the love here. I know where this is going.
So, it's on the agenda, the link to this report, but I wanted to show you our website again. So you can go through.
I want to see it every single meeting.
Look at, isn't that pretty? That's pretty.
And Trish, does this? Okay, it scrolls fast. Trish hated my other clicker because it went really slow. So this one will work better. All right. So budget to actual. Sorry, you've all seen one of these other than Bruce. We do 3 of these. This is the first one, and this is through Q2 of the fiscal year. So through December 31st. I like to look, I'll pull up all sorts of different charts. We've talked before how things generally year over year, quarter over quarter, they look similar. And that's by design, that's what we look for unless we have special projects going on. Some of the things you may notice this time, and you may have already noticed, we've talked about a little bit, is timing of purchases. So some IT stuff in particular, some of the infrastructure related purchases were made earlier in the year. And so you'll see that here. All this information has been updated so that we're working on the amended budget for 17-18. An additional, oh geez, it's too fast. Additionally,
It's the blinker thing again.
what's really cool.
Right? I totally get it.
Additionally, we take out, or I take out the capital lease book entries. We've talked about this in prior years. We have a small one for last year for the skid steer. And a reminder what that is, it's just a book entry. We have to put a matching expenditure and revenue, the same dollar amount on the books, but there's no actual expenditure or revenue dollars. So I take those out of these analyses just solely so we're comparing apples to apples. So again, you can see here is the percentage of the year that we are through, both the school year, the fiscal year, and the payroll for school year as well. You can see just the total dollar amounts, the total percentages right here. 16-17 versus 17-18, very similar where we're at. We start with the function analysis. This is what you see every month with the summary woofer codes along the side here. And this is where expenditures are made. So here are the budgets by each summary function with the fiscal year to date expenditure and that percentage of the budget spent. So you can see in the notes, we talk about this, most reports, timing. Timing comes into play quite a lot with where the percentages end up each quarter. The goal for most of these is by the end of the year to be very close to 100. Some get there quicker than others. So for instance, like insurance and judgments, we're paying most of our insurances up front. We're paying most of our debt services up front. We have a capital lease payment left there. That's why those percentages are higher. Oops. I'm gonna have to go back to the clicky one next time, Trish. So these pie graphs is the same information, the summary function, broken down in a pie to illustrate, obviously, the pie of the pool of money that we have available to spend and where we allocate it. One of the useful ways to use this is to remember that as we go through the year, the budget up on top is what we plan, what we expect to happen with our expenditures. And then through each quarter, you can see where we are. And so we want to end up very similar to what we budgeted. And right now, we're kind of illustrating timing of expenditures. Business administration is one of the bigger full fiscal year budgets. So we're spending more money prior even to the school year starting than some of the other school year budgets like regular curriculum or undifferentiated curriculum. So as we go through the school year, we expect that this will end up looking very similar to this. This is even more summarized: instruction, support services, non-program transactions compared to last year, and also in graphical form. Very similar. This is the expense ratio. This again, we expect to end up close to budget, and where we are now is kind of related to timing again. So we've spent a bit more in support services to start the year, which we do every year, and the instruction expenditures will catch up as we get through the year. And jump in with any questions, but again, as I said, we're pretty similar to last year in most of these expenditures. Here is by object, and this is what is purchased. So again, salaries, benefits, etc. We do every year talk a little bit about how budgets are allocated in Skyward, where mini budgets are, the total amount might be put in a supply budget, so a 400 non-capital object, with the, intention and understanding that those amounts can be spent at the teacher's discretion or at the principal's discretion if they need to buy capital objects, if they need to buy, if they need to pay fees, if they are purchasing other things with those funds. And that's why sometimes the percentages are a little different for the fiscal year to date than the budget. You look a little closer at some items. It's really, since I started doing these, we've looked at winter costs, so gas and oil for heat, electricity, snow removal. You can see that through December, it just started actually getting snowy and cold towards the end of December, so it was rather mild up until that point. We do, if you look at the percentages, we're doing well in winter-related costs. The snow removal bills for the next report will indicate that it's changed a little bit since December. B&G is on track, very similar. Here are the non-personnel IT and CIA budgets you can see there. So this is what Trish was talking about when she was telling you what those funds are used for. The percentages, obviously, like I said before, IT is a little bit higher because some things were purchased earlier in the year, this year, than last year. Youth options is contained within the CIA budget, as are the sub-wages. Youth options is on schedule. I'll just jump down quick because I have the notes down here for some of these things. Youth options is on schedule. The composition is changing a little bit, at least so far this year, where the transcripted credits, tuitions are a bit lower. The college and schools are higher. I asked Trish about that. She said this is likely to continue to be the case. And that is how we budgeted it. So we'll have to see the degree to which that changes over time. The sub-wages, you can see, again, are on a lower track, both dollar-wise and percentage-wise, than last year. And last year, the biggest component was we had a large amount of long-term sub-cost. And so this year, we don't. And I would say we're on track with sub-budgets right now. IT budgets I discuss in the report here, the timing of purchases, and then HRA. This is the self-funded portion of district health insurance. It's the last component of the health insurance that makes up the deductible. And we can see here's the all funds chart over time. I don't know if you can see it from where you're sitting, but we started out through October very, very low. And then November and December, we jumped up right around to average, just a little bit above average. And our Fund 10 budget is pretty close. It has a very similar trend line where right now the all funds budget as well is very close to the actual average of what we have here over time. Right now we're slightly above budget, but again, it varies, and you can see even in prior years, which each of those lines is a individual fiscal year, month to month, there can be some fluctuation. So we will see going forward if we stay close to budget or if we have some movement one way or the other. Oops. Special ed. We talk about special ed. This is the other big instructional fund. The special ed department and functions through Fund 27 are not self-sufficient. They have a certain amount of revenue through state aid and federal funds, and the rest is made up with a transfer from Fund 10 at the end of the year. So as stated at the beginning of the report, all the Fund 10 expenditure charts and graphs and discussion excludes that transfer, but here is what will be made up with the transfer. So this is all the Fund 10 expenditure activity. And again, you can see year over year, it's pretty similar. Those are the big summary expenditure codes. There it is graphically. The budget's a bit higher. So far, we're just a little bit higher in actual. Here again is the expense ratio. This again indicates some timing. Some of the non-program transactions, the big one there is placement, outside placement of students. And again, this year we're a bit lower than we thought we might be. Revenues. I'll talk a bit about the composition of the revenues, where state, general aid, and property tax are the biggest components. You can see through December that here is our aid. That was our, we get a September and a December general aid payment. At this point in time, we have not yet received any tax revenues. The local, at this point in time is all fees, student fees, field trip fees, things of that nature. And then you see in the other revenues is where the insurance claim monies that we did for the amended budget went.
Is that athletic fees also?
Yep. Fees and all
Any kinds of-
gate entries, so football, for
Oh.
instance, around $9,000 to $10,000 each year. Here it is, a pie chart compared to last year. Again, pretty similar. I hope you had a chance to read through this. Obviously, I do talk about the different compositions of our revenues over time and how those are changing. And you can see here cash flow timing. I do it both by month, graphically, and also cumulative. And so we do get quarterly general aid revenues. We get the tax revenues in January and February, and then in the following August after the year is closed. And then we get some categorical aids. Per pupil aid, that is what the legislature is using in lieu of increasing the revenue limit. That has been growing, so that is also just a one-time payment in March. And then open enrollment, which has been growing for us quite a lot over the years. That's a one-time adjustment also in June. So timing does come into play when we look at cash flow, and that's why we cash flow borrow. So the midpoint of the fiscal year, we look to be on track. You can see the comparisons there for the percentages of expenditure in each of the school year or fiscal year budgets compared with the amount of time that has passed in each of those types of year breakdown. So this was a quick run through, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to discuss.
As always, it's very thorough.
So
I spent all
when,
day putting this together for them.
You did? You did a good job.
Direct your questions to Mark.
Yeah.
so when the 18-19 budget is being built, will we get more information about like the science curriculum costs and the specific technology costs and things like that as they're estimated? Or
It depends on the component. Some things like laptop replacement, things that involve new money. So if we want to do that, an outright purchase, that would probably mean that we would need to increase the IT budget. We do have a capital lease falling off, and so if we were to continue that process and do a capital lease, that would likely mean there wouldn't be any new funds needed for that. I think if you're looking for a discussion about what is going to be used, Trish ran through really, what she was showing was a continuation of her funds and what that's used on in a given year. And so some of the things, one-to-one for instance, if it involves us needing new funds to pay for these things, that's where we would discuss it here. Whereas if it's just a continuation of the same level of funding, allocated differently, so different curricula, then that's, that was kind of what Trish was doing tonight, I think.
So how can we better understand and I think paint a picture for our community, like how much does Project Lead the Way cost us? Because I think it's a program that's very well supported and appreciated, but I don't think our taxpayers know that it costs money. Or, Youth Options is a supported and valued program, but until I saw that budget line, I don't know that we know that it costs $100,000. And I appreciate knowing some of those, like in general, here's what's in that budget, but it's hard to, I think if our community knew more of the specific dollars of some of those programs and the investment that we're making, that would help us, I think, engage our community in a conversation about what it costs to educate a student.
I think part of that then would have to be, what are you looking to build your narrative around? So that, if there's some of these things, like Project Lead the Way, is tiny compared to, health insurance or something.
Yep.
So it really is, what bits and pieces are useful to describe the work that we're doing and highlight some of the things that are really important for Somerset and unique maybe to Somerset, or the things that we want to show off. So that's directed by you as board members, or by, if you say to Mark, we want to highlight, X, Y, or Z type of thing, we can come up with some kind of report or presentation that shows that. So it's really, what are you looking for? What's the message you're trying to get out there? What's the information? If you just want to see over time, you can go back to any of these previous reports and kind of pull out some of that stuff just to see what it's like. But if you're looking for a specific story, then that's where we have to talk about what that is, and then we can get that data out there and create the presentation.
Well, I think as a whole, we have all these things that happen in these buildings, and we have an overall budget. But if you were to look at extracurriculars, for example, what does it cost for a kid to participate in a play versus the actual cost versus what they take in and what the experience is? Because the experience is priceless, but there is an investment for that. And when you're talking about a new curriculum in science, here's what the curriculum costs, but then there's also the teacher, the equipment, the technology, so it's not just as simple as, it costs this much for the books.
Right.
And I think a lot of times people don't realize that overall cost of those things. And having, and it can be a breakdown, it can be however, I take a case and I say, this is what it costs us to do this work. We have to do this work, it's required. So, that information, so people, the taxpayer, is all they're looking at their tax bill. Is it going up or is it going down? And if it's going up, why is it going up? And obviously, it has to be because of the teachers. That's where they get all the blame. So when you look at your tax bill and, here's what it is, but this is what things cost. And if you want quality education, is it an investment or is it an expense? And, I think for us, investing in the data, investing in the curriculum, investing in the equipment, all makes sense.
We have a lot of levy information out there.
So does website.
You can direct people.
So, you know what, can you do a webinar? Dave, can you do a webinar? Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah.
No, just go and click.
So, I'm just joking, but I understand what you're saying. And it really is, then what's the story we're trying to tell? If you look at extracurricular activities, you can pull out any one, it's a tiny amount, but you're right, it's still an investment.
Mhm.
Some investment, and kids are getting something from it. So, you know, it's really, what do we want to talk about and how granular do we want to get? We can break this down for really anything. And we will have John here doing the report like Trish did and like George did for extracurricular as well. So that'd be a great time. Again, to that, really, we can look at any of these things.
Oh, good, so I'm on the website, where would I go to answer that question?
Well, so if the question that you're trying to answer is, you know, what is the play cost? What's the investment in the play? What's the return? That's not on the website. You know, that'd be something we would.
Dang. You had me.
You mentioned levies, so I have some good levy resources right now.
Okay.
And in the financial reports, you can look at levy historical information in the budget hearing and the meeting.
What if you send Dave an email? And say, hey, Dave.
What really is, if there's discussions, if there's things you want to highlight, you know, tell Mark and we'll discuss it at admin, and then I can break down data and we can work on presentations, and it really is what are we looking to discuss, what are we looking to highlight or talk
Some
about.
of these conversations will be very relevant as we move closer to looking at levies and bonds and what have you. As Dave said, one of our last building debt is coming off here this next levy cycle.
Yeah.
And that's something we really have to look at because we wanna be able to maintain that until we decide where we're going and when, and if we're going to look for something, so the jump isn't too dramatic. Because if you're gonna improve facilities, it's gonna be a tax increase, there's no way to get around it, but it just has to be tempered in the right manner. So the questions that I think all of you are having are very relevant when we start coming down the road, because you're gonna get asked a lot of finance questions.
Well, especially now that we are rolling off of some of that debt. And, because everyone's gonna say, yay, and not, oh, okay, now's the time to reinvest. And that's really what we need to prepare the community for is, yay, it's reinvestment time. That, and.
It's an opportunity.
Yeah, and are they ready for that? And have they even thought about it? And what does it look like? And what do they think they need, this community needs versus, are we going to grow? Are we projected to grow? What does that mean? So there's a lot of questions coming up.
Well,
If you come Saturday to the Bridging Summer Session,
Really?
Yes.
God dang, that would have to ink you in.
One of the big things at the school board conference also was the idea of community engagement, and that essentially schools need to be their own journalists. We have to tell our own stories. And I think we've seen a lot of great examples this year, particularly Shannon putting up pictures of current workplaces and what they look like, and classrooms and what they look like, and 1900 classroom and what it looks like in our current classrooms, and wanting to create that new space. And when you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, that doesn't have meaning to a person. But when you can say, the desks that we previously bought that look like this are this much per desk, and it costs us this much for a classroom, instead we're buying these tables and they cost this much, and this is what workplaces look like. I think we can create that story of how we're investing in the future here and put it in terms that make sense to people in their daily budgets and also their taxes in this massive of a budget.
I think an example that would match what you're saying there is the computer labs.
Yeah.
Computer labs versus one-to-one. That's a very visceral thing a person can consider and say, well, now you just stay in the classroom and do the assessment or whatever.
Well, and I think a lot of people think of textbooks and think of the cost of those and think, I can buy a book at Barnes & Noble for $25, so why do we need to spend so much money on curriculum and instruction? So we need to find a way to tell that story of, textbooks are online now, and they cost this much per student, and they cost this much annually, and then we need a Chromebook to access it, and get that narrative going before we're asking for money in a referendum, so that we're showing how we're investing now and seeing success now, so we can make a good sell.
And the fact that we can actually show student growth now. So, you know, we can show it. So once we haven't had student growth in a long time. We have student growth and it's documented.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
Good question.
that was a smackdown.
Guys don't know the
Someone's in
word.
trouble tomorrow.
Is there a picture?
There will be tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, those are all things
They'll
that,
be working on it.
when you invest, this is what you get.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's, there's a lot of interesting conversations going on.
Well, there's one other one that ran through my mind is a classroom budget. You know, I don't know what annual classroom budget is here or when.
Stay
that will-
tuned.
Stay tuned, that's coming up.
That is coming up, yes.
Do we have any ideas yet of how the changes in youth options might affect that budget, or they're working out those details and we'll know someday? And then are we starting to look at changes for health insurance costs?
Yeah, we just are talking about scheduling a meeting. I can't remember if it's the end of this month or March, but Mark and I will be meeting with Jay Connor to talk about options possibly, you know, beyond just health partners.
And I have one other question for Sarah. Sarah?
I'm sorry, what? Sorry, she's asking, sorry.
We're just talking about the 6-year-old roaming the hallway.
Oh, so, you know, it's always been a goal to have this fab lab. Is there a pre-entry fab lab that starts in the middle school?
There are middle schools that do have fab labs,
Is that something that we need to look at or not?
yes.
Well,
It would be awesome. Do we have kids that would absolutely be all over it? Yes. Last year, for the first time, when we take the 6th graders to BizTown every year, they had a 3D printer there for the first time. So just exposing the kids to that, they were over the moon for it. So yes, you know, and Eric does what he can with some of the design software, which is one of the reasons why we still have a hard lab, because some of his software sits in that virtual
So
cloud.
how many 3D printers do we have in the school district?
0?
No.
I don't have one.
we-
I don't have any.
Some folks
You have,
do.
you don't know? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't have any in my building.
So when I was mentoring in Hudson, sorry to bring up the name all the time, but their whole 3D printer thing is paid for by Anderson Windows. So maybe there's some partnerships we can work on.
And we do, Patty.
Yeah.
We have, you know, we got a big grant from Anderson Windows to help push us forward. We just got another big grant to pay for another 3D printer. I mean, those are the things that we're working behind the scenes. And creating those partnerships largely driven by the strategic plan and driven by 21st century. Project Lead the Way has a middle school component that goes all the way down. The amount of money needed for training and staffing and space and equipment is quite exorbitant to bring it on, because you have to bring it on as a package. Currently, you know, our Project Lead the Way program, which has kind of expanded in some ways, but we've lost a few of our instructors, because it's very instructor specific at the high school. We're looking at ways to expand that, and what would that look like? Writing another grant to try to bring on a full-fledged fab lab, and where can we put that? We don't need those computer labs in their current format. So a lot of those conversations and the money is coming in. We just did another donation letter that we're sending out to a company who donated money for the 3D printer. We just put a purchase order up there for. So we're moving that direction. It does take dollars and it does take staff, just like you said, it's a package. Largely tied to monies that are currently not available.
So in that bridging Somerset group, you need to add that on the agenda.
And tell you the transition between youth options and what it's going to, we're getting updates from like SAA and so forth, saying that they're looking at some patching bills at the state level to fix what might be a funding issue. Because I think now it's 75% restricted and 25%. That's the proposal. That's what it will be at this point. So they're saying that might not be sustainable. There might be some different options that need to be considered. So that's something that hopefully we'll be looking at.
The other part of that component is that they're opening it up now to high school kids, where it used to be just 11 and 12. And you've read all that background in youth options. It costs us quite a bit of money to maintain that program. It gives our kids great opportunities, but it's a big dollar amount.
And it's not not reimbursed by the state.
Correct,
And
correct.
they're gonna open that up to all high school
All
kids?
high school kids.
Oh, that's gonna be huge.
And students, according to what we're reading so far, but it is evolving, you know, students would start that process by going out to any university and applying online or applying using their method, and then come back to the school and say, here's what I did. I want high school credit for it, or I don't want high school credit for this, but we are still going to be mandated to pay for it.
On the hook for it.
Mhm. Good news is we have a lot of really great offerings locally to try to keep our kids still getting great things, great opportunities. One reason why college in the schools cost went up a little bit is because we brought on, Kelly Emerson has a teaching one now that is brand new at the high school level at the university. And it's been a new offering for us, plus the one Dennis Potter's offering that took place of AP History is in very high demand. Very good course.
Well, we've got three more courses we're applying for.
Well, at the school district, at the school
Well, you knew
board
that
thing,
wasn't new information.
what they talked about is the up and coming, where the need is gonna be is purely service industry.
Yeah.
So it's mixing that Project Lead the Way with what we need in health and human services and those service needs. Yeah, nursing, social work, you know, psychiatrists, all those types of things out there, so getting that career stuff is gonna be huge. Ay, ay, ay.
All right, any other questions for Dave?
Thank you.
Thank you for all your putting on our website. And I really think it should be shared on Facebook.
Well, it will be.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, it will be. We had a,
So awesome.
we're getting around to it.
I love seeing your pride in your website.
Someday you'll have to invite Jody.
Killing
All right, so we are on to policy review. So, Mark.
How do we wanna do this since half of our team is not here? I'll talk a little bit about each one of these. You know, the ones that you've got, with the exception of the last pre-expulsion, the last one, pre-expulsion is new. So we'll talk about that last, but the other ones that we have on here, you know, to start the cycle, we basically pick some low maintenance ones or ones that are pretty routine. And all the highlighted areas and the stricken areas are from Neola that, you know, they change policies when legislation changes. And for, you know, legal pieces of that. Our group, we're just going through these now, so we don't have all of our blessings on things that we wanna see change. I've got, when we look at the, let's see, the interscholastic athletic one, I have a couple things on there that I'd like to investigate a little bit more, but is there anything on these first four, the family engagement, athletics, the drug-free workplace, or the suspension expulsion, that you have some real questions on? What you can do, since this is the first reading, you can, you know, shoot me those notes on them, because again, we're just gonna start digging into these. The one with the family engagement, with Title I, that's all ESSA updates and what have you, so there's nothing in any of these that are really earth-shaking or time-sensitive or anything like that, so we've got some time with that. The one though that I think, you know, we really wanna move forward on is this pre-expulsion policy, which really takes a lot of, it gives us the opportunity to keep kids in school. And, you know, I was a little surprised last year going through the expulsion process here. I mean, it was an eye-opener for me to see that process, because there should be a pre-expulsion process that happens, you know, before we get to the board level. And Shannon, where did this come from?
I'm just opening it here. We, hang on.
This was it, so we.
So this was the draft from Neola.
Okay,
And we started talking about it, correct me if I'm wrong, about a year and a half-ish ago. And just with everything going on, it never really gained much momentum. So we kind of had this lingering, but never really did anything
yeah, I
with
think
it.
it was after I went through that first session that,
Yeah.
you know what, we've got better use of our time at this level
Yeah.
than to have you come in for special sessions. And, you know, that's not to say that that still won't happen in severe cases, but I would say 90% of them now can be, some other type of arrangement can be made before it gets to the board level. And that's basically what we want to accomplish, is want to keep kids in school.
Yeah.
Or get them back as soon as we can.
I'm thrilled to see this because we were essentially post
Yeah.
expulsion, having the agreement that students could meet those requirements to get back to school sooner. So we were essentially doing this, yet having to bring the entire board and the lawyer in. And I would rather see students have that opportunity to fully understand the gravity of the situation and take some steps to rectify the situation prior to moving to expulsion when they are considered in school.
So what I'd like to do is, you know, I'd like to send out just a note to the full board with the things I want to see in these, and there's gonna be very few. And then the next time we get together, we can dive into them, if there is. I mean, there may or may not be on those, so if that works, we'll follow that.
Can we make it on here, can we do we only have view only right now for this?
Oh, so can we comment on here?
Yeah, I mean, is there a place that you could invite, you know, can we just have our own Google Doc with this that we could send to them? Or we can have instead, like I know we were talking about that before, but, you know, cause I'm sure all of us have something to just quick throw in there, if we wanted, I don't know, maybe.
I think it's a really good question, because the technology is certainly available. The challenge is that, so questions could be posted on there and suggestions could be put on there, but there can't be any discussion.
Strikes or.
Well, strikes or, you know,
conversations.
yeah.
So just somewhere we pin notes to it.
So we've delved into using Google Docs within meetings to do that.
Note stuff though?
Absolutely, but even within a comment, like you and I could start going back and
Yeah.
forth, having a discussion about it in a comment, and if Katie or by the other board members having access to that, that
Yeah.
could essentially become a walking quorum. So I think it's something that is very possible, but we just need to very carefully look at the law regarding walking quorums and kind of establish our norms or our guidelines.
You know, so I guess, you know, just to go through these, just to start out with here, if, you know, if you take a look through these, just maybe list the policy and just a paragraph, whatever, what have you, know, and have you just comment. I mean, again, none of these are things that we have to approve next meeting. These are things, you know, that we can go, take our time to go through. The other caveat with this is, you know, we talked about guidelines and administrative procedures with these, and we did, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but we did a year or two ago pay for that service, which had never been used. That was one of the things at the WASB conference that I went to Neola and said that, you know, I want to access the guidelines, administrative guidelines, and they said, well, it's gonna cost you about $10,000. And, okay, just, by the way, would you check, because I think we have these, they went in the system, oh, you paid for those a couple years ago, and you're allowed 25 hours, I think it was, of training with that. And then the crew here said, yeah, there was some, you know, thumb drive with these on that, you know, there was gonna be an attempt to work on it. Well, our Stu, I got his name right, is coming back from hibernation now in February, so we have to go through him, but he'll be in to work with us on how, you know, we can already access through Google Docs, or what, through board docs, those guidelines. I can't get, you know, you can't, when you get into Neola, you can't access them, but we've already paid for them, they're there, so now we're gonna have to go through a system of modifying those to meet our needs, but that's a huge step, and it's an expense we don't have to incur because we have it. So,
And it's kind of frustrating that that's been sitting back there and board didn't know about it.
Superintendent would know about it.
Well, the superintendent didn't know about it.
That's, I can only use, I don't know if I can use that.
We can't change what we don't
Can I use
know.
on new anymore?
No,
Is that what
no, that's not an excuse.
Well, and to caveat that though, they were on board docs, but they weren't activated, so even when
Right,
I logged in
Mhm.
my
Yeah.
rights, it wasn't shown that those were out there. They had to like turn it on.
they
so
did,
we
and
could
they
see
did that
it.
actually when I was down at the convention down there, they said, oh, you're all set. Gee, thanks, that was easy. So, but on these, Bruce, just what we have right here, as you go through them, we have comments, what have you, you just wanna shoot me a paragraph or what have you. Cause we're just gonna, again, go through these as a capital or two. The one though that is something we wanna get going is that last one, pre-expulsion piece there.
Well, and, key is to keep kids in school. If they're getting expelled, they probably should be staying in school.
And that would only be, I think, the philosophy we have is, we have some, severe, there's
Oh, there's some stuff.
pieces that we do need to, take kids out of the system, but that's so different from what it has been in the past, just ones I sat through last year, didn't have to be that way.
Yeah, yeah.
So Mark, do you anticipate any large suggestions to this one?
To which
the
one?
pre-expulsion
No,
one?
I don't,
Okay.
I don't.
And so are you recommending that one be
That
brought
would, that could
forward,
be moved forward to a
for
second reading.
a second reading and approval
Yeah.
in
We'd like to get that one
The
going as
February
soon as
regular
possible, and hopefully we'll never use it.
I looked through these and I really didn't see, I saw a typo, which is an important typo on 5610.
Nancy, FYI, Mark has asked that the title team, since the title school is elementary, is kind of going through those too.
Okay.
I can say right now we are following those. The only thing we're kind of looking for is last year up to this year, we've transitioned to a school-wide program. So kind of seeing if there's any changing that needs to happen there. But we are following those. We do have our school math and literacy night coming up here
Yeah,
late February, early March, and so we'll,
awesome,
That one.
all things are occurring, but
awesome,
So-
thank you.
yeah, if we have anything, I'll share those with Mark.
Looking at the interscholastic athletic ones, just, it laid out kind of the vision, I guess, of what the board believes the purpose of athletics is. And I just think that that's worthy of a conversation and worthy of maybe even a community and parents conversation.
Well, there's a couple pieces in that policy that I want to have a conversation with Cabinet on that, because there's some things that,
There was a really great article, I think posted by a coach that I read, that there's a struggle right now with the purpose of youth sports versus the purpose of school sports. And that sometimes when we're bringing those together, we aren't necessarily all clear on what the purpose is and what your child is signing up for and what the expectations then can and should be. And I think conversations and clarity would help everyone be more successful. So I'd like to see that discussed.
yeah, and if there's any key areas in that, if you want to identify them, because there's a couple that I have highlighted here that I want to have a conversation internally first, so.
It's a district approved position.
Pardon?
It's a district approved position.
Position?
District approved.
I
That's
can't
one of
hear
the lines
you.
in here.
Number
District
A.
approved position.
Prior to enrollment for each participant must.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but now you can do it by chiropractor, right?
That I don't know.
Well, yeah, it depends what, there's certain people that can do.
If you sent him to a dentist to give you a physical, that probably would not be what.
Well, I mean, but district.
Yeah.
You
Do
gotta
we have
cover all your.
approved physicians?
Yeah,
I don't think we do.
No, we're accepting physicals.
That's, I mean, district approved, but who do we not have approved? Who do we say is,
well, and that's the hard part, is those little parentheses mean that that's a suggestion to consider by Neola, but not necessarily something that we have to add. And so, I mean, that's a really good point. Do we want to delve into that, or do we want to just allow people to go go to their physician of choice and
See, that's where I have to get
Turn
caught
in their
up, and see
card.
what our past practice is, but I'm not sure.
Usually you just get your card
Yeah.
signed off
Yep.
and it's.
I mean, I don't want someone to ever,
I
ever
mean, there's a-
come up sometime, well, who's your,
Yeah, well, but
a line,
that,
one word that a kid's,
but that's that whole thing, obviously, the reason that that's in there is because kids play sports and keel over.
yeah.
So so what kind of physical is a physical? And, so that's why district approved, that adds a little,
But then does this add something else we have to do?
It
We
adds
have to
more to-
Approve, we have to have a district approve. You
right,
can go to
Mark's not busy enough.
this and this and this, these couple places, but you
I'm just
can't go
curious,
to.
is that a technical term by our county coroner, keel over?
yeah. You don't wanna hear what my term is. But I mean, it's one of those things that, to me, that is encroaching into parents' responsibility. That's just how I look at
Of
it.
all these, this is one I've got some questions on,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
this-
So-
These are the ones, this is the ones we'll have a
Yeah.
lot of questions on. I mean,
Yeah.
it just, it's just because of how many kids are involved in activities, so.
Because I mean, I think that's one of those things that, if a parent, if you can afford, if the state says it's all right to go to a chiropractor and that's what you can afford and that's keeping your kids in or out of sports, that's a parent's decision, that's not our decision. That's just my opinion. Katie's cringing over there.
So what I'm hearing is that
Tasia made the change.
policies A through C will go forward to a regular session for discussion. And then policy E, the pre-expulsion, will go forward to a regular session for a second reading and approval. And I'm also hearing that it might be beneficial to have a discussion of our process for reviewing policies. Because if we lay out some boundaries with how we use Google Docs, we could be more efficient, that
That's, I mean.
Bruce could highlight up and comment like there's no tomorrow.
I mean,
And when
you
we
could-
get Katie going on her Chromebook, she's gonna help us find every single spelling
Just
error.
check and see what-
And, I mean, it's not, we can become a 21st century board as long as we lay out our
That's it, I'm-
procedure.
Sorry, Mark, I don't wanna,
Yeah.
I don't wanna write paragraph 3, item 4,
No,
when I
me
can
neither.
just go comment, bing,
Yeah, no, I agree.
you know.
Copy paste to it.
Could they,
No,
There's 2 more clicks,
add it
you
to
know,
their drive
one.
and make their copy of it, like, so then in the title it can be like,
Yeah,
large
yeah,
and
I could do
whatever,
that.
large notes, and then that can get shared with me or Mark or whatever, and then we can compile them all.
Yes,
You
I mean, I
totally
could,
could,
you could
but-
easily, I can put it in a
We can-
PDF and it can be,
It's okay to do that now.
Well, we had talked about doing that a long time ago.
it just then adds a lot more work for whoever.
Not technology.
For Tasia.
So you're taking
We're not.
7 PDFs now and,
and ultimately, our conversations about them will be more efficient if we can see everyone's suggestions or strike-throughs and comments on one document.
yeah, that we know that, hey,
Yeah.
we're all hitting this item.
Yeah, and I think it's very much so legal and possible. We just have to understand what a walking quorum is,
That is everyone
what
gets.
would create that, and
That's fine.
understand the boundaries so we don't cross that.
I don't know what.
I got it.
This is a quorum. Four.
Yep.
The floor,
Yep.
it's a walking
Got it.
quorum.
So a walking quorum would be outside of the board meeting if 4 board members were discussing.
Got it.
So if we all make a decision and then we go outside and talk about our decision.
Got it.
Or even worse, talk about our decision before we make it and then come here and make it.
Oh.
All
I
right.
didn't know if you guys attend soon.
What did you say?
We just don't talk about board stuff first. There's so many other
Talk about your
topics.
kids.
Yeah.
Your wife, how the basketball game's going.
All right, I'm gonna refocus us, board member Shockner. We're gonna move on to item 12, the boundary appeal. Mark,
Yeah, you've got the
unless you had
info-
anything else, Katie? Sorry. All right.
You've got the information on, from Trevor on the, our unsuccessful attempt of appeal. He didn't really, and he read his note too, and he didn't feel that we really got the time due to us. But, and we knew it was a gamble when we did that. However, now it opens up some interesting, points here, because we have other people that wanna come in with land and wanna go up. And, I've had a discussion with Osceola superintendent, because they have some people there that wanna annex in. We couldn't figure out exactly where the land was, but told them, I said, you know, if they go through the process and appeal, and if their land is on our boundary, chances are they're gonna give it to them. And he was very surprised, because he said our board's gonna deny it, and I said, I'd expect them to, because ours would too. No one wants to lose that tax base, but, you know, if they're smart on this thing, if they really wanna get out, there's an avenue. And that's why we just have to be cognizant of that. I don't think we were, you know, I think the stars lined up for them when they came and the ammunition they had, I don't think that panel or that
Well,
board
that
was-
board, I mean, that was the key.
Well, Dave and I were there. I mean, we
Right.
got railroaded from the beginning with that whole thing.
Well, who selects the board? That's what we need to figure out, Mark.
Not me,
No,
don't
I
me.
know,
I
It's,
think our time and energy is better invested in making this the place that people want to annex their land to than,
We still have to deal with those.
absolutely, we'll have to deal with them.
But it's a legislative board.
Mhm.
And they're board members from around, school board members.
School board members.
Yeah, yeah, but it was pretty, I don't know, it was pretty obvious to me, they weren't gonna listen to any rationale that we had. It was, what do the parents wanna do? And it was like, and, you know, you get a little upset with them at the end because of the financial ramifications for us. You know, it's just not, 1 year, this is ongoing tax revenue that we're losing, and they have no idea what we're dealing with over here with this land that's gonna be developed, because of that bridge. I mean, this could be.
It's the same philosophy as having with vouchers though. I mean, the idea is that parents should be able to take their tax dollars, put their kids where they want them to go to school, and that's gonna affect land boundaries and affect vouchers, and that's just the climate that we're in.
Well, and the thing is, if you get a development, and you have connecting
Yep.
property,
Yeah.
that could take a whole development right out of your school district.
Is there a map somewhere?
Oh, there are minutes.
Oh, we got a lot of maps.
But I mean, is there a map that can be, or, Senator, can they update these maps so we don't have the,
Cross boundaries.
we have the here, the Osceola, the Somerset, and then we have Somerset on the other side
Well,
of this?
if you just look at Star Prairie Township, for example, Star Prairie Township, there's one plot on the other side of Johannesburg,
Yeah,
down in the gravel pit, that is the Somerset School
Yeah.
District.
yep.
Everywhere around is New Richmond. The bus doesn't even go there, but it's a Somerset School District. So, and the parents wanted it to stay that way.
We
So, I mean, they're everywhere.
have an island just south of here, that's, was it Hudson? I think it's Hudson.
There's tons of little islands.
And, they were given choices back then, where they wanted their
Yeah, but I mean,
tax dollars to go.
Yeah, our road is, Brosler's are New Richmond, we're Somerset, Peterson's open enrolled, Beckstrom's were Somerset, the next one's homeschool, New Richmond, all the way down to Squaw Lake. It's all, Cook Drive, Apple River Bend, I mean, they're all that way.
I mean, if this is gonna be something that we start seeing a ton of, and a lot of money and time that's maybe, I mean, I don't know, it's way above our heads, but isn't there some way that they just, you're on this road, you know, I mean, would they make the change now, or it's probably way over, it
Redistrict.
doesn't matter.
No one wants to lose tax revenue,
Yeah.
and they're gonna fight tooth and nail, and just as, like this year thing, we don't tell that amount, you know, I think we're much better prepared for the next person that comes into this conversation as far as wanting to do that. You know, and the ones who are on the border are the ones we gotta worry about, because if they're creating an island, they're not gonna let them do that. That's one of the big things, I mean, that's what I took away from that day. Did you?
I mean, generally speaking.
I mean, that's one of the big things, but if you're on the lines, you know, beware, we're open.
Well, that's where the school district has to be involved in the planning and development and watching what these developments look like. Because when you have developments being built and they can,
Oh, yeah, there's
Pick
a
and
development,
choose.
and there was a new one between here and Hudson when we were looking, and the back part was Hudson, and the front part was Somerset, even though it was surrounded by Somerset.
You know,
And a
and
new
I'm not
development.
opposed to working something out with the other districts that, you know, hey, we've got this, you know, in my past life, we've made those arrangements with other districts, just to kind of straighten out boundaries and help with transportation and what have you, we've swapped. And that's okay, but just to have a panel down in Madison say, you know what, you're going over here because you want to, and, you know, sorry, Somerset, you're out of line.
Well, and it's interesting, because St. Croix County services 13 school districts, you know, so it's completely surrounds us.
We're much wiser now.
Oh, yes.
Got a lesson.
So, boardroom video?
Yeah, okay, I sent,
Thank you.
thanks, guys. I just sent, you know, I sent the contract out, and I would just basically want to tell you, we're gonna pull the trigger on this, and we do have live streaming capabilities, we have 10 presets for that. Someone can control the presetting. Well, let me introduce you to Tasia, someone. But it's all very easily controlled. The unit will go up somewhere around where that light is there, but we'll have, like I said, 10 presets, so we can focus on the board. Half the board can be one, the other half, and maybe 2 speaking stations, where that camera can be adjusted. Typically, in bigger rooms, they'll have a channel or a system that, you know, if you have a PowerPoint, we'll just, you know, flip to that. We won't do that here because it's so close that the camera that'll be a preset that they can pick it up right off of there, so. Just wanted to just tell you that everything's been worked out with sound and everything. They were out here a couple weeks ago and, you know, to make sure, I had to make sure that we're good.
Is there a backup plan for when we move the meetings?
For what?
When we move the meetings, like if we move it up to the library?
If we do, then we're gonna have to use a swivel.
Or you're gonna buy a Padcaster?
Do I have to?
Because all we're gonna have is complaints about the sound. Once they actually can see and hear sound. We already have a ton of people watching them with that quality. Once we increase the quality, we need to keep that quality irregardless of where we're at. And it's not that big of an investment.
Okay.
And it'll go along with the other tools that you're looking.
What did you say it was called?
It's called a Padcaster.
We'll be so transparent.
They won't even be able to see us.
I know, it's so
We'll call you
awesome.
Casper.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions about the video for Mark?
And that was just information, you know, 'cause we already decided we're gonna do it, I just
Yep.
wanna make sure.
So is there any idea on, once you order it, how long?
It's, I think they said
Install?
6 to 8 weeks before they get everything put together and get it done.
Cool. So we are on to once around the table. Bruce? Nothing? Alright. Katie? I was really excited to hear that we are gonna have the Sabres data and the YRBS data. And one of our board goals is to work with the admin team to create monitoring reports. And I think one of our first monitoring reports maybe should be on social, emotional, and mental health. And we will have this new data that we can be on Sabres with the YRBS and the county dispatch data to really create a picture of where our community is, our students and our community are at. So I would like to see that discussed so that we can have a plan to use that data.
My thing this time around the table is, we talked a little bit about activities. When are we gonna have that report from John? And is it gonna include one student, multiple events, or how many participants in each event? Because I think it's two different numbers.
So you're looking for,
The activities, we had talked about having an activities report.
right,
And we just never clarified if it was, student participation was based on one student, multiple extracurriculars, or, you know, because you could have one student who was involved in 7 different things,
Are you looking at the costs of those?
No, I'm just looking at participation.
Oh, okay, just yeah.
Participation.
Yeah, that should be part of that report.
Yeah, and because what we currently get is overall participation, which gives us not an actual participation number. So if we say there are 485 students
Sure.
participating, that means we have 100%,
program.
that means we have 100% participation. We don't have that.
You don't
So,
have by program.
yes, yeah.
That's fine.
And how many are multiple?
Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right, so our next, item 15 is, topic for action to resume Robert's Rules of Order. Is anyone willing to make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Patty. Is there a second? Thank you, Bruce. All those in favor of resuming Robert's Rules of Order, please say aye. Aye. All those against? Motion passes 4-0. And then item 16 is to adjourn. Is anyone willing to make a
So
motion
moved.
to adjourn? Thank you, Patty. Is there a second? Bruce gets the second one. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. All those against? Motion passes unanimously 4-0, and we are adjourned at 8:46.
Bridging Somerset is meeting Saturday, if any
Oh,
of
yeah.
you can make it.
And tomorrow's the gala.
Tomorrow's the gala.
What time, man?
Saturday, 9.
Here, right?